What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto hated by fairy tale harem? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. So this is the fairy tale guild. The brown-eyed blonde, Lucy Heartfilia looked around at the massive hall at the entrance of the guild. She had tried so hard to finally make it here. And now that she had finally set her eye upon what she had dreamed of as a child, it was even more amazing than she had imagined it would be. The many mages sat comfortably littered around the hall, drinking alcohol and conversing with each other, telling their stories of their recent adventures. Some being more louder than others and less believable. "Hey, Mikao, look, another newbie." Wakaba pointed in the direction of the girl who just entered the guild hall with Natsu. Mikao turned to see her. Quite a looker that one. Mikao admitted, to receive a hard glare from the brown-haired girl sat next to him, drinking alcohol literally by the barrel. "Don't be trying anything funny with her, or you'll have to deal with me." Kana glared hard at both of them, taking another sip of her alcohol. Lucy walked through the hall of the guild. Her idol Mira-Jane was waving her over. None of the other guild members even noticed her. It appeared even Natsu had forgotten about her. Sitting in the corner of a room yelling about something with Happy. "Hey, my name's Mira-Jane, are you a new member? What's your name?" Mira-Jane sang out in a happy tune. "My name is Lucy Heartfilia. It's so nice to meet you, Mira-Jane. Can I join Fairy Tale?" Lucy replied in an equally ecstatic voice, looking upon Mira-Jane as if she was a god. Mira-Jane ducked under the bar for a few seconds, returned with a piece of paper and a pen. "Just your application and registration form. Please fill it out truthfully." Mira-Jane smiled at her. Lucy picked up the pen. "As soon as I sign this I am a fairy tale member." Her mind was doing backflips in joy. "Okay, first question. Name, Lucy Heartfilia, okay, easy one." Lucy scribbled down her name. Age 17. Magic, stellar spirit summoning, only natural, they would want to know that. Likes, books, stellar spirits, okay. Perhaps they want to know what you'd like for your birthdays. Dislikes, my father, him. Can't think of why they'd want to know that. Measurements, what the hell kind of question is that? Lucy's cheeks tinted with red. She didn't want to go against what Mira-Jane had asked her to do. Grudgingly, she signed the area for where her measurements would be. Lucy slid the form back to Mira-Jane, shuddering as she did so. Mira-Jane beamed at her like it was nothing. "Great, let me just get the stamp." Mira-Jane took away the form, returning with a skip a few moments later, a stamp in her hand. "What color would you like your stamp to be?" "Pink," Lucy replied after a few moments' thoughts. Mira nodded. "Pink please." She spoke to the stamp. Lucy looked at her like she was crazy. "Where would you like your stamp?" Lucy held out her left hand, the palm facing downwards. Mira pressed the stamp down hard on her hand. She removed it, the pink fairy tale mark now visible on her hand. Lucy laughed in glee when she saw it. "So I'm a member now." Mira smiled widely and nodded. Lucy jumped in the air, punching it with her fist. She landed in front of Mira. "So are these all the members? I'd like to meet them all. These are most of them. Gray and Urza are on jobs right now. And you will probably never meet every member," Mira told her, looking out towards all the happy faces of the guild members. "Why's that?" Lucy looked at Mira, puzzled by her response. "In our fairy tale guild, we have what we call mystery men. 4 of them to be precise. We have Mistgun, who never shows himself to anyone besides the master. Guildarts, who is away at the moment, and won't be back for a while. Then we have Fried Justine, he used to be quite a pleasant guy, me and him had done many requests together. But then he changed, I haven't seen him for about 6 months now." Mira looked a little saddened after that description. "And the 4th one? His name is Naruto. I've only met him once. The only person he talks to is the master. He was nice when I spoke to him, but he appeared a bit on edge." Mira replaced her saddened expression with the smallest of smiles. "Well, I've heard of Mistgun, Guildarts and Fried. They've been frequently mentioned in the People We'd Like to Interview and Discover section of Sorcerer's magazine. But the name Naruto is unknown to me," Lucy admitted. "Don't you know anything else about him?" Mira shook her head slowly. "All I know is that one day Master told us we had a new member. Naruto was very young when he joined. I must have been about 10 when he joined. So he's been here a long time. And no one's spoken to him." Lucy was quite astounded by the information. Mira nodded now. He keeps himself to himself, as I said before, he is a nice guy if you can get him to speak to you. But I can't help but wonder if he's hiding something. Break. The final foundations of the building had been quickly destroyed. He stood at the top of the rubble staring into the distance, his spiked black hair swayed lazily in the wind. His long black cloak doing a similar thing. Ogre stomped Dark Guild. Pathetic, but still, better to get rid of them early than let them develop into something stronger. He reached into the pocket of his darkened silver pants, taking out a list of the Dark Guilds in area. He crossed off Ogre Stomp off his list, placing it back into his pocket. He dusted debris off his loose low V-neck black shirt. Captain. He turned, one of the Rune Knights accompanying him was kneeling on the ground, bowing towards him. All members of the Dark Guild Ogre Stomp are present and accounted for. Shall we take them into custody? Yes. Is the report on today's activities ready? He asked the kneeling man. Said man nodded, throwing to him a lengthy report. He looked through it, scanning to make sure every detail was filled in. Good. Deliver it post-haste. Tell the council it is coming from the captain of the 2nd Division of Magical Law Enforcement, Sasuke Uchiha. They will read it immediately. Have the other Rune Knights take the criminals to justice. Yes sir. The Rune Knight caught the report and in an instant he was off. Leaving Sasuke alone, Sasuke turned back around to where he was previously looking. He could see it, from this height, from this distance he could still see it. That guild, it haunted him, it taunted him. And he could do nothing about it. It was a legal registered guild, he would need a warrant to take it down. And despite their ever-decreasing popularity with the Magic Council, everyone else loved them. Sasuke's brow furrowed as he continued to stare out the guild, anger and irritation growing in every cell of his body. Fairy tale. One day you will slip up, and I will be there on that day. And I will take great pleasure in taking you down. Break. So what do you think his magic is? Lucy couldn't stop thinking about this mystery man, Naruto. He was, well, a mystery. Mira didn't have any of the answers she wanted, but she had to get the questions out of her system. So you've taken quite a liking to our Naruto, have you? A laugh was heard next to her. A small aged man stood on the bar. Dressed in orange clothing with a white and orange striped hat on his balding white-haired head. A small staff in his hand. A lot of people do. We once had a request for him to marry a girl as a job. He laughed loudly again. Master Makarov. Lucy was alarmed, he was one of the strongest mages of the age. One of the 10 wizard saints, the strongest mages on the continent. It's not that, it's just. It's alright. Makarov flapped his hand up and down repeatedly, gesturing her to hush. You can ask him yourself. He's on his way. The whole guild silenced, staring wide-eyed at Makarov, who returned their looks with a smile. Smiles began growing on the guild members' faces. The guild members began cheering, conversing happily about the impending arrival with excitement and anticipation. Naruto's returning. It's been 3 weeks, hasn't it? Well, it's shorter than his last departure. How long was that? 3.5 months. This time I'll make him fight me. Natsu was screaming for the fight he desperately wanted. He's very popular, despite the fact no one speaks to him. Lucy looked around at the reactions of the guild members, how happy and excited they were. The doors to the guild opened. Suddenly Lucy felt sick, insecure. Like every positive feeling should possibly have was sucked out of her. She looked around, she wasn't the only one experiencing it. Every member of the guild was shaking in fear. Even Natsu had quieted down. They all appeared too shy to look at anything but the ground they stood on. Lucy forced herself against the urge, looking at Makarov, who was completely fine. The light tapping of footsteps approached. Lucy lost all her strength, her eyes clenched shut. She was so afraid and so tired. Her very soul felt empty. The feet walked right past her and stopped, before moving once again towards her. Master, I'm going on this job. The voice was calm, devoid of any humor, anger or sadness. Completely blank, but not a cold voice. Very well, Naruto. Stay safe. The master seemed rather cheerful while everyone else cowered. The patting of feet on ground was slowly faded. I always am. The voice spoke from a distance. Lucy heard the doors of the guild closed. Suddenly she had control of her body again. Her confidence in herself returned. She looked around. Everyone else seemed to be doing the same thing. As if everyone was waking from a nightmare. Every person's body had a gleam of sweat to it. besides Makarov, who continued to stare blankly at the guild entrance doors. The guild members began laughing, their spirits perked up. All laughing as if nothing had happened. That's our Naruto. Always the mysterious one. Lucy heard the yells of appreciation for him. What in the world was that? Lucy asked Makarov while looking at the gleeful guild members. It was as if his very appearance sucked the positivity out of everything. That was some of his magic. Makarov's eyes darted to her, as if expecting her absolutely astounded reaction. His dysphoria magic, or the ability to manipulate the negative emotions of people, animal and environment. Lucy's eyes went wide. Negative emotions? Makarov nodded. Yep. Rage, sadness, fear, neglect, vulnerability. Every bad feeling you can name he can control. That's so dangerous. Lucy exclaimed loudly. This guy could beat people without making them fight. He could instill fear of his mere presence. Dysphoria. It sounds a lot like Charm's magic. Makarov nodded again. Except unlike Charm's, if the target discovers that they have placed under the magic, it isn't cancelled out. That is partially the reason why dysphoria magic is near illegal. Lucy couldn't think if she could be any more shocked. Bora had used a Charm's magic against her, but if he had the same magic as Naruto. She shuddered at the thought. But wait, you said partially the reason why it is nearly illegal. What's the other half? Makarov sighed. Maybe you won't like me telling you this. But you're new, so you deserve to know how he joined. It started 9 years ago. Everyone was away at the time doing jobs. The S-class promotion exam was on, you see. Flashback break. Makarov paced the floors of the hall of his guild. How bored he was hating the sound of his feet patted against the ground. Everything was much too quiet for his liking, how he longed for something interesting to happen. The doors to his guild opened slowly. Makarov looked around to the door with surprise and curiosity. A small figure stepped through into the guild. A small boy, barely older than 9. Stood, exhaustion and fatigue, as well as distress was written across his face. His eyes were puffy and red. But Makarov could see the bright blue eyes under it. The blonde hair on his head was messy and uncombed. Clothes ragged and unfitting. The boy dragged his feet, shuffling into the hall. He stared at Makarov. Makarov felt a twinge in his heart when he gazed upon the boy. Who are you, boy? Makarov approached him slowly. He heard the boy sniffle, tears welling in his puffy red eyes. Please, he whispered in a soft, begging tone. His eyes began closing. Makarov darted forward, catching the boy before his body hit the ground. He checked for breathing. It was ragged, but steady. The boy had only lost consciousness. Lifting the boy up, Makarov carried him up the stairs to the hospital wing on the 2nd floor. This boy needs rest. He looked down at the boy's sleeping form. He looked only slightly more peaceful. Break. The boy's eyes fluttered open. Stay calm, you're in the fairy tale hospital wing. You've been asleep for a few hours. Makarov placed a hand softly on the boy's shoulders. He looked him in the eyes. The boy stared back in confusion. Why you? You're really worried about me. But I'm not making you do it. Why? The boy asked. It was obvious in his eyes that he was freaked out. Because you remind me of my grandson. He also has blonde, spiky hair. Wait, what did you mean that you're not the one making me worried? The boy didn't make sense. Of course he was the one making Makarov worried. My magic. It lets me control people's negative emotions. Worry is one of them. The boy seemed hesitant to answer. Makarov was shocked. He can control people's negative emotions. Could this be a branch of the ancient nirvana? Makarov had heard of that nirvana. Being able to switch light and dark, good and evil. With his magic, this boy could turn even the most warm, light-hearted person into a stone-cold killing maniac. Where did you come from, my boy? Makarov had to continue the conversation with him. This boy was too interesting to just leave alone. The Magic Council. The boy looked fearful of Makarov. He was right to do so. Makarov stepped away from the boy's side. Fairy Tail and the Magic Council never did see eye to eye. Perhaps this boy was a spy. They would know that Makarov would never turn away someone so young. Why are you here? This time Makarov was hesitant. The boy looked close to crying. I needed to get away. I couldn't handle the screaming anymore. The boy grasped his head in what appeared to be pain. As his eyes clenched shut, tears poured out from them. His cries mixed in with shrieks of pain. Makarov was back at the boy's side. He couldn't bear to see one so young suffer. Please calm down. You need to tell me. What are you talking about? Makarov stroked the boy's hair gently. It seemed to calm him down. The council. They used to have me go with their armies. They went to dark guilds. They would make me use my magic to make the dark guilds cry. To make them weak. Then they would take them down. The boy sniffled once or twice. Makarov felt for the boy, who knows what horrors he had seen. So young and being used by the council. They have sunk to a new low. I didn't want to do it anymore. The boy continued. So I ran away. I heard there was some good guilds in the area. So I went looking for one. I found your guild, it looked nice. The council was always talking about fairy tale. The stories made me smile and laugh. Makarov smiled down at the boy, who smiled back weakly. You're going to kick me out, aren't you? No, my boy. Makarov smiled gently, patting the boy on his head. You're safe now. My fairy tale guild will keep you safe. Become a part of this family. The boy seemed to perk up a lot, his smile widened, baring all his teeth. Makarov noticed those too, he was even further shocked. He was beginning to think his old heart can't take much more. How sharp and elongated those two teeth were. Impossible. He can't be one of them as well. What is your name, boy? Makarov asked him. This boy could reach unimaginable height. If only he had the right person to guide him. The boy wiped his tears from his eyes. He held out his hand towards Makarov. My name's Naruto Uzumaki. Makarov smiled, he took the boy's hand into his own. And shook it gently. Hello Naruto. I am Master Makarov. This is my guild, Fairy Tale. I'd like to welcome you into it. Break. Oh wow. Lucy looked to the doors. The boy was long gone. He was a member of the council. Makarov nodded. He was. A very important player in their game, I might add. Causes us quite a bit more bother as well. Why's that? Lucy asked curiously. You see, Naruto learned some of their secrets. Things they don't want people to know. Especially us. They're always after him, trying to re-recruit him or arrest him. So he's very careful with his work. That, and I think there's something he's not telling me about his past, before he was in the council. He's hiding something, Makarov informed her. He didn't want to suspect Naruto, but it was obvious he was hiding something. Lucy looked to the small man. If he causes you more bother, why not just kick him out? You know, make him leave. The whole guild silenced once again. They stared at Lucy in shock. Sweat dripped down Lucy's back. She could feel the magical aura behind her. She saw the veins on Makarov's forehead bulge. Anger evident in his eyes. Lucy took a few steps away from him, just to be on the safe side. Kick him out? Make him leave? Makarov's voice was harsh, filled with rage. He is family. And under no circumstances do you push away family. Lucy was panicking, she had just pissed off one of the strongest mages on the continent. She didn't know what to do. Besides, Makarov's voice suddenly changed to a calmer voice, a wide smile present on his face as he looked at her. Fairy Tale has never been one to be scared by the council or their rules. So screw them. He laughed hard. The entire guild erupted in celebrations. A celebratory fist was thrown, followed by another, then another 2, then another 13. Eventually the whole guild turned into one huge mass brawl, but the guild members were still smiling, some even laughing in good sport as they were punched in the face. Lucy looked at the scene in front of her in wonder. What an interesting guild, was Lucy's only thought as she watched the brawl escalating into the use of magic. Lucy laughed at the scene. She knew she was going to like it here. Fairy Tale was filled with many wonders and mysteries. Things she'd like to discover, perhaps even record as inspiration for her novel. A very easy job, Naruto thought to himself as he began his trek towards his job's location. His blonde bangs framing his face swaying with every step, as well as his long orange jacket, lined with black flames along the bottom of the jacket around his knees. The rest of his attire consisted of loose, black clothing that covered his arms and legs, being strapped down by red bands, and his pants being tied into bandages around his shins, into black sandals. 3 whiskers adorned each cheek, his piercing blue eyes staring down the road, being covered slightly by his free-to-hand spiky bangs along his forehead. Helping to move precious antiques. Not a problem for my clone magic, I'll be finished with this and back to the guild with the next few hours. Naruto continued to himself in his mind. He missed being away from the guild. Makarov had saved his life. Without him, Naruto didn't know what could have happened. He smiled at thoughts of the guild. Natsu roaming its hall for a fight. Gray comically dropping all his clothes from nowhere. Urza beating both of them to a pulp. Naruto sighed in content. A great place. If only Makarov had found me before the magical council, then. Papa Cycleone, why are you telling me to leave? Because Naruto, my son. I'm having a guest, and he isn't very comfortable around humans. Wait for me over there. But I'm not a human, I'm a dragon, just like you. Maybe one day, my son. But for now you are too small and too pink. Now please wait over there. I'll collect you when my guest is gone. Alright dad. Why are you here boy? What are you doing waiting out here in the forest? Come, I'll take you to the magic council, they'll know what to do. Naruto shook the thoughts from his mind. Those were private, things he hadn't told even Makarov, things he didn't like to even think about. You dare use my own style of magic against me, Sasuke? Naruto looked over to his right. Sure enough, out of the shadow of a tree, came Sasuke Uchiha, captain of the 2nd Division of Magical Law Enforcement. A smirk prominently set on his face, framed perfectly by long raven black bangs, with spikes at the back of his head. A full black jacket similar to his resting around his body. Darkened silver pants wrapped into bandages around his shins just the same as him. A low V-neck black shirt is his clothing for his upper body underneath the jacket sleeves covering up to his hands, which were presently clapping together. Well done. You noticed more faster than I expected, but you know how the magic works, so it's no surprise. Sasuke spoke in a friendly voice towards him, despite they were on opposing sides. Your dysphoria magic, my euphoria magic. Is there really a difference between the two of them? A big one. Naruto replied in a less than friendly voice than Sasuke. Both dysphoria and euphoria are the only descending branches of the ancient nirvana, the magic used by the Nervate, so we share sister magic. But dysphoria and euphoria's use are completely different. My dysphoria is the manipulation of negative emotions, hate, anger, rage, sadness, repentance, guilt, etc. While your euphoria is the manipulation of positive emotions, love, joy, glee, acceptance, compassion, happiness, admiration, and the like. Sasuke's smirk widened. So you've learned the secrets. But the way you describe it, you make euphoria sound so useless. Surely you know the danger that love holds. I could turn you into such a narcissist that you would find this world not good enough for yourself, and make you take your own life. Or I could make you so daring that you'd charge absent-mindedly into an armada. You see, Naruto, that's why our magic is absolute. I told you what I could do, but you can't stop me now you found out. That is why Charm's magic is so weak. Actually we are completely immune to each other's magic. Naruto commented. We can spot when we are under their influence easily. And our opposing magic cancels each other out. Sasuke began clapping again. Well, I'm impressed. Turns out you're not as idiotic as the rest of that sorry excuse you call a guild. Naruto's brow furrowed, Sasuke smirking at the reaction. Struck a nerve, did I? Naruto silently glared at Sasuke. He wouldn't boost that man's ego with a response. So what's the new favorite pet of the Magic Council doing here? Are you going to try and force me to rejoin the council? Sasuke scoffed lightly, placing one hand on his hip, letting the other dangle freely. Fortunately for the Magic Council's former favorite pet, I'm in the area strictly for council business. I'm here dealing with a dark guild. Have you heard of Ogre Stomp? Naruto nodded. A small guild, a fair few strong members, we've been monitoring them in case they try anything. Well don't worry, their strong members were taken down, along with the rest of the guild. Their HQ has been destroyed as well. You just happened to be venturing too close to the site, so I thought I'd stop and say hi. Sasuke smirked continued to grow, now being to show part of his teeth. And what about you? On some ridiculous job for that ridiculous guild you call Fairy Tail? Naruto growled deeply, anger becoming visible in his exhaling breath. His teeth sat on display to Sasuke, prominently the two sharpened canines, like that of fangs. Sasuke's smile retreated into a smaller lip-sealed smile. His eyes closed slightly in amusement, cocking his head slightly to the left. Oh, bearing the fangs of the dragon at me, are you? He laughed lightly. They don't scare me, Naruto. I look at them enough when I see that stupid grin that idiot Natsu owns in magazines, newspapers and the reports the Magic Council gets. Do not insult my guild or its mages anymore. Naruto's anger was rising, he hadn't felt so full of it in a long time. Your guild. It is Makarov's guild, the only person in that guild that deserves respect. Sasuke spoke amused at the look he received from Naruto. Are you going to try to fight me, Naruto? Don't you remember my magic? Copy Wheel Eye. The ability to instantly copy any opposing magic the user faces temporarily, considered a very rare lost magic. Its pros, even lost magic can be learned instantly, including Dragon Slayer magic. It gives the user the maximum spells for the magic, except for Dragon Force mode, giving the user perfect control over the magic. Its cons, the copied magic is only of use to the user for 1 hour, after that the user instantly forgets everything about the magic, and to make room for the rapid influx of information, the mind temporarily forgets how to write. Meaning you can't write the secrets of the magic down, and no way anyone could remember all the information to conjure the spell simply by being told everything with such a short time span. Naruto looked at the impressed smirk on Sasuke's face. Very good. You know when to do your research. Now what's it going to be? Try your luck and finally beat me in a fight, or walk away. Sasuke smirked, his eyes flashed from their onyx black to a blood red, the black tomo positioned perfectly around his pupil. Is the option of walking away really valid? Naruto asked. Sasuke shaking his head was his reply. Naruto sighed, closing his eyes. Very well. Do you know what we are known as around Magnolia, even around Fury? We are known as the rivals because of our constant battles. One thing I know is that I won't accept anyone as my rival if they walk away from a fight. Sasuke continued, speaking to an eyes-shut Naruto who listened intently. His eyes snapped open, magical aura burst out of his body. Sasuke countered with the release of his own aura. The auras collided with each other, a powerful burst of energy exploded from the collision, blowing everything back except for the two soon-to-be combatants. The combating auras filled the forest, widening their range. Make your move. Sasuke smirked, he needed a challenge. Break. Which of these is suitable for mage performing their first request? Lucis' eyes scanned over the notice board, looking for an easy job. One she could complete easily and build confidence in herself as a successful, job-completing mage. A powerful magical aura flooded into the hall, everyone was on edge. This aura seemed to be fighting with itself, like good and bad fighting for supremacy. What incredible magical aura! Lucy stared out of the hall's entrance, where the aura was leaking in from. What the hell is that? She finally shouted aloud. She looked at Makarov, who while everyone was startled by the sudden ferocious magical aura, he sat quite immune to it. That, my dear girl, is the effect when two eternal rivals are about to meet in combat. Makarov informed the new blonde girl. But he could recognize both of the ingredient magical auras that made up this very potent aura. It appears Naruto has gotten himself in another fight with Sasuke. He informed everyone aloud. Many seemed to calm down, some even looking relieved. However, Lucis' eyes went wide. Sasuke, as in the Sasuke Uchiha? She near shouted at Makarov. Makarov's eyebrow rose in suspicion, yet he nodded nonetheless. Do you know him? Lucis' cheeks went a bright red, the ground becoming very interesting to her. Not personally, she mumbled, but he is always ranked in the top 3 mages you'd want as a boyfriend section in the Sorcerer's magazine. She pulled out a magazine showing Makarov the article, a picture of Loke from his own guild in first place, followed by the raven-haired boy, Sasuke in second, with Blue Pegasus Hibiki ladies in a close third. All 3 mages were miles ahead of the other contestants. Oh, I see. Makarov spoke enthusiastically, snatching the magazine from Lucis' grip, flicking through the pages. Got a little crush on him, have ya? Hey, I wonder where I am on this list. Lucis' blush intensified. It's not like that. She stammered out. Makarov slammed the closed magazine down, clearly frustrated. Well, just ignore the aura. It will go away in a bit. Just find yourself a nice easy job to do. His frustration quickly changed into a large smile. Lucy smiled in return, giving him a quick nod. She turned to the notice board and began hunting for a job she could do. Lucy. She was tackled to the ground by the rose-haired Natsu. He sat on top of her, grinning at her madly. Let's go on a job. That magical aura got me all pumped up. Lucy struggled under his weight. Get off me and I can pick a job to go on then. She grunted out, trying to push the young dragon slayer off of her. Natsu's grin continued to grow. No need, I already got us a job. Looky here, see, 200,000 jewels and all we have to do is get a book. It will be a cinch. That doesn't mean you can continue to sit on me. Lucy finally threw the boy off her. She quickly picked herself up, dusting herself off. She swiped the job request from the floored Natsu's hand. Reading it over. He's right, 200 feet 000 jewels just to get a book, but what's the catch? Lucy continued reading over the request, reading more of the finer details. Oh no, she mentally jumped. Natsu had stood up by this time, looking at the startled look on her face. What's up with you? The person who has the book. Duke Everlew. Lucy shuddered at his name. Who is he? Natsu was stumped. He is one of the biggest perverts around. I'm not so sure about this job now. Lucy finished quietly, wrapping herself in her arms for some form of protection. But Lucy, 200 feet 000 jewels. Natsu whined out loud. Think of what you could do with that. Lucy placed a finger to her lip. She could pay her first rent of her new apartment with it, with some money left over for spending and saving. Fine, she eventually agreed, but we're splitting it 75 to 25. Deal, but what are we going to do with the other 199 feet 900 jewels? Natsu grabbed her hand, shaking it violently. Lucy face-palmed, dragging her hand slowly down her face. No, I meant 75% to 25%. Natsu's mouth formed a perfect circle. Oh, then why didn't you just say so? Now let's roll. Happy. ISAH. Natsu's blue cat screamed, flying on its wings towards the two. Natsu sped off, not thinking to let go of Lucy's hand, began dragging her along behind him. Although, Natsu called to Lucy behind him. I don't know how much you can buy with 25%. I'm getting the 75%. Lucy shrieked to the rose-haired boy. How can someone so strong be so stupid? Break. What an annoying magic this guy has. Naruto cursed in his mind, his clothes dirtied, his body battered, bruised and cut. He looked up from his kneeling position to see his opponent, also on one knee, bruised and beaten, but nearly as much as himself. Naruto gritted through his teeth. He's a master at hand-to-hand combat, so he forces you to use magic. I can only imagine if this guy was allied with a dark guild. I was hoping to try out your Dragon Slayer magic, but in our fights you always stick to clone. Sasuke chuckled. He looked up to see Naruto staring at him, he panting much more heavily than himself. Sasuke rose to his feet, now being able to look down at Naruto, both figuratively and literally. You were right. Our dysphoria and euphoria magic cancelled each other out. A lesson that will be well remembered. Naruto continued to kneel on the ground. With one eye closed he looked up to Sasuke. Glad I could help, he panted out. Oh, you did. Sasuke chuckled lightly. These dark guilds have been ordered to eliminate have been such a bore lately. All so weak. I needed a challenge you presented. You've gotten better. Thank you for the fight. Sasuke gave a quick nod, before he began walking away, a slight limp to his walk. So is that it? He heard Naruto call from behind him. He turned his head to face him. You come and fight me, then just take off once you've assumed you've won? Naruto now had struggled up to his feet, standing eye level with Sasuke. Sasuke stared at him impassively, readopting his work persona. He rarely showed emotion to his fellow Magic Council members. Only Naruto would see his more playful side. Naruto, you know the phrase. What goes around, comes around. Naruto gave a nod and understand. Well, that phrase has never been more true than with me. If you want to continue this fight, I will go full out. I'll send you back to your pathetic guild piece by piece. Sasuke threatened him, his eyes widening slightly at the end of his sentence. You're lucky that I can't continue this fight, I have a job to do. Otherwise I would have gone full out as well. Naruto's eyes widened at his own threat in retaliation to Sasuke's. The two glared at each other for a few more seconds, both turning to face the other way. They both left in their respective directions, leaving their battlefield in no better condition than themselves. Everything within their vicinity was destroyed, debris from cracked earth and wrecked trees scattered across the field. Craters, placed in random places where they had connected. Their fights would always be like this, they would meet in the most awkward of circumstances for some mundane reason, as if they were naturally attracted to each other like the opposite ends of magnets. They would fight, destroying whatever was in their way. Their fights would also end with Sasuke winning by a minuscule margin. And then both would leave, as if nothing had happened, but it was how they would leave which was worth noting. They would both walk away from their fight, battered, bruised or cut. But they would always leave with the smallest of smiles present on their faces. One of satisfaction and acknowledgement. Break. Makarov sat in his office on the second floor. The mail had just been delivered to him by the darling Mirajane. She's so much more cuter now. He giggled perversely to himself. He lifted the stack of envelopes, he sighed, beginning to flick through them, throwing them gently back on his desk. Bill, expulsion, bill, lifetime ban, bill, bye. He stopped himself mid-thought. This wasn't a bill. He looked at the insignia at the front. It formed the shape of wide eyes with slitted pupils. And a large grinning mouth filled with shark-like teeth. Around it was a string of thorn-like patterns, overlapping and going underneath parts of the makeshift face. Demon Mist Guild. Makarov recognized the insignia immediately. A prominent guild south of Magnolia, set near the waves and with a forest. The humid nature caused the fog to be fairly thick, and when it became trapped in the forest it just made it worse. The fog completely blinding everyone who didn't already know how to coordinate themselves through it. What could they possibly want? Makarov tore open the packaging, letting the letter slide out. He read through the contents of the letter quickly. Then again but more slowly. Then once more to make sure he knew what it was saying. Demon Mist wants an alliance with Fairy Tail? Makarov clutched his head in horror. He didn't scream out in horror. That would have only scared everyone who was still at the guild. He trembled, looking over the letter again. He recalled Demon Mist's guild master, Zabuza Momochi. A young man, an angry man. The type who would rather get things done quickly and neatly and if he could with his own two hands rather than stalling things. His magic suited his personality. The gruesome beheader magic. It enabled him to transform any of his limbs in large butcher's cleavers. He had seen the swords in action, the cut through other steel like butter. This ability was doubled as a healing power for Zabuza, as when he mowed down his foes, the cleavers would absorb the blood and iron, allowing to speed up his own mitosis levels, making him heal faster from wounds, sometimes even enabling him to regrow limbs. Makarov shuddered. The boy would always be smiling gleefully as he sliced down his opponents, laughing when they were incredibly strong. Why would he want an alliance now? He questioned himself. He was beginning to think it was a fake or a prank. When he remembered the recent activity of the Dark Guilds, the Balam Alliance, an alliance between the three of the four most powerful Dark Guilds, Tartaros, Grimoire Heart and Oracion Cease. The Dark Guild, Raven Tail, the guild created by his own son Ivan, continuing to remain and work independently. With all the smaller dark guilds giving their allegiance to those three as well. Perhaps Zabuza wants to get in on the Alliance of Light? Makarov wondered. He and a few of the other guild masters had been creating an alliance of their own to combat the Balam Alliance. As of now they only had 5 members: Fairy Tail, Blue Pegasus, Quattro Cerberus, Kate Shelter and Lamia Scale, and that wasn't nearly enough to battle all the guild involved with the three in the Balam Alliance. More allies the better. Makarov smiled. He began working on a letter of acceptance to Zabuza and letters of notification to the other guild masters involved in the Alliance of Light. Break. Naruto arrived at his job. The old woman in charge approached him, a scolding look present in her aged eyes. "You're late. Where have you been? There's only one of you? What does Makarov think he's playing at?" She bombarded him with angry questions. "I apologize for being late, madam." Naruto quickly apologized. Sasuke's euphoria would really come in handy now. "I was detained. Master Makarov played no part in the reason I was late. As for the number of hands you need, well, how many do you need?" The woman looked at him skeptically. 10. I need 10 pairs of hands. I'd like to get all this moved within the hour." She pointed over to the large pile of antiques, some looking very ancient. Naruto nodded, before closing his eyes. "Clone," he muttered aloud. 10 exact replicas of himself appeared, literally jumping out of his body. The old woman looked astounded. "These are solid clones, made from parts of my magical power being separated from my body. They can lift all the antiques, and they don't talk, so they aren't distracted." Naruto quick a small smile to the woman, who looked very apologetic. "I'm so sorry, my boy. What a fabulous magic you have. How many more can you make?" she asked. "As many as I want." Naruto told her plainly, looking away to his clones, who had already begun to move the antiques. Well, why don't you make some more, then me and you can put our feet up. The old woman laughed hard. Naruto shrugged. Before forming another 50 clones, they were soon all away moving the woman's possessions. The woman gasped in amazement and appreciation. How about a spot of tea? She spoke friendly towards the only Naruto who wasn't lifting anything. Thank you. Naruto gave another small courteous smile. The old woman waved him to follow her. Let's go inside then. She began dragging him inside, Naruto slightly surprised by her strength. You know, my granddaughter would just love you. She always had a thing for the bad boys, but you seem like a little bit of both, plus you've got the looks. Naruto sighed, mentally blocking out the old woman's rant, nodding slightly to show that he was still paying attention. This is going to be the longest hour of my life. Naruto mentally whined, watching the old woman's never ceasing to move lips. 2 feet 000, 000 joules. Lucy stood baffled in front of the man who requested the job. He sat on the sofa in his large mansion, smiling at the three of them, his wife's hand laid gently on his shoulder. Just for collecting a book? No, not for collecting the book. The man spoke kindly. 2 feet 000, 000 joules for collecting the book, and then destroying it immediately. That book has caused me a great grievance. But why Mr. Kabi? Happy asked the man, or rather his square mustache, as that was what his gaze was fixated on. The man, Kabi, sighed. It belonged to my father, Zekua Melon. It was the final book he wrote. And it destroyed his career. I would rather that book be destroyed, no one ever knowing of its existence. Zekua Melon. I've never heard of the name before. Lucy admitted, and she was an aspiring author, so she knew all the authors, so she can find inspiration for any genre of book. Oh yes, he never did use his real name. You may have heard of the novelist, Kemu Zalin. Kabi smiled at the trio. Kemu Zalin? Lucy spoke with widened eyes. He's my favorite author. I didn't know he had a family. Yes, he used a pseudonym to keep us out of his celebrity spotlight. However, Duke Everlu found out his identity, and demanded that a book be written by my father, detailing adventures of the Duke. My father spent 3 years in solitude writing the book, then promptly cut off his writing arm after completion of the book. He died a few weeks later due to an infection on his arm. Kabi explained, because of that book, me and my father departed on unfriendly terms. I am unable to make amends to him in person, but by destroying the book that ruined him, I will be able to allow his memory to fade away with honor. Lucy felt a tingle in her eye, a single tear dropped from it. Natsu, on the other hand, growled. So how do we get this book? He was furious on the inside, not because of the despicable man, Duke Everlu, but that the man sat in front of them was lying to them, about everything that he is. Natsu could smell it. Well, at the moment the Duke is currently hiring maids to fill his massive mansion. And he only accepts the most beautiful of girls, or so I've been told. Kabi explained. One by one pairs of eyes shifted towards Lucy, who looked incredulous towards the task. Absolutely not. Lucy couldn't repress the shudder. I refuse to even pretend to work for a man as disgusting as Duke Everlu. However, the stares did not disappear, they continued to stare at her. Natsu with an eyebrow rose, as if waiting for her to eventually agree. Lucy began to feel weak under their stares, their eyes boring into her. Alright, she finally exclaimed, but I get an 80% cut now. Break. Naruto gazed over the banister of the second floor. So this is what it's like. He hadn't activated dysphoria, so they had no clue he was just above them. I haven't been in Fairy Tail without it for so long, I forgot what it was like. The halls had lit up, laughter and shouting echoed through the guild. Mages slung their arms around the shoulders of others, singing and chatting happily. Naruto smiled a small smile. What are you doing? He turned to see Makarov stand in next to him, looking at him with a blank face. Nothing, I just got back from my job. Naruto threw a bag towards Makarov, who caught it. A fairly loud jingle was heard upon him catching it. The jingle mixed into the audible hall below, so no one noticed it. The guild's cut. Makarov sighed. You always give more than you have to. He looked up to the young blonde. Why don't you take another job, if you've got nothing to do? I've been taking jobs non-stop, I'd like a break. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. Then why don't you go downstairs and be with your family? Makarov asked, gesturing his hand to the happy mages below. Naruto looked over to the mages below. before shaking his head. I'm fine. Naruto smiled to the aged guild master. Suit yourself. Makarov shrugged. Anyway, on to the point. I have a very important, personal request for you. Naruto looked back to Makarov. What is it? You know Demon Mist? Makarov waited for Naruto's nod or understanding. Well, their guild master, Zabuza Momochi is coming here? Naruto's eyes widened slightly in surprise. The silent demon himself? Naruto had heard of Zabuza's speciality, combining 3 of his magic into one powerful killing technique. One was his wandering fog, which created a thick fog around Zabuza in a 300-meter radius and wouldn't dissipate or lose its opaqueness until Zabuza cancelled it. Then he used his muted body technique, which cancelled out all the sounds his body made, including breathing and his footsteps on the ground. Then he would finish with the magic that made him famous, Beheader. Combining the 3 to take down his opponents without them even realizing he was standing right behind them. It wasn't as much as his magic that was scary as it was his personality. He took great pleasure in dismembering his opponents. Makarov nodded. I was surprised myself when I got the letter from him. They want an alliance between themselves and Fairy Tail. So he's coming here to sign it, as they asked Fairy Tail personally. And what does this have to do with me? Naruto looked down to the guild master. Sure, Zabuza was frightful, but he was also incredibly powerful. Not someone Naruto would like to cross in battle. Makarov looked towards the blonde boy. Do you remember Zabuza's protege, Haku? Naruto nodded. Haku. He is the ace of Demon Mist. One of their, if not the best of their S-class mages. What about him? I suspect he will be attending the signing with Zabuza, like a bodyguard. I know Zabuza had plans for Haku to replace him eventually as guild master. But it's what he can do, his strength that is the problem. Or better yet, who it will affect. Makarov explained, trying to drop hints to Naruto, who was picking up on them. Haku will be at Zabuza's side when he signs the alliance. I want you to be at my side. Makarov spoke with full confidence. Naruto was slightly alarmed. Me? Isn't Laxus, Mirajane or Urza the one who helps you with these things? It was him who watched over the alliance signing between Fairy Tail, Blue Pegasus and Lamia Scale. Makarov nodded. Yes, but Laxus has been different lately. Makarov sighed out with thoughts of his grandson. Mira is different as well, she's a cutie pie, but she doesn't have that level of respect others give her like they used to. I say respect, but it's more like fear. And Urza is away, besides I trust you completely, but I have another motive as well. Naruto looked at the guild master quizzically, waiting for Makarov to continue. From standing next to me, I'd like you to focus your dysphoria on keeping Natsu silent. Stopping him from trying to pick a fight with Haku. Naruto's brow rose in surprise and amusement. This is a side of you I've never seen, Master Makarov. Naruto chuckled quietly. Usually you applaud Natsu's eagerness for everything and ability to destroy everything he comes into contact with. Makarov nodded. I know, and I feel terrible for doing this. But this is one thing I can't allow to screw up because of Natsu's quick temper. We need more allies to stand against the Balam alliance. Naruto nodded. Of course, Master Makarov, I will not fail you. Oh, and you might want to keep Happy in check too, seeing as I've never seen Haku without her. She goes everywhere with him. Makarov quickly added before departing back to his office. Break. Go away. I requested only the most beautiful blonde girls. So get lost ugly. The man's words still echoed in her head. Am I not pretty? Lucy began questioning her own looks. The man was no Prince Charming himself, what with his weird hairstyle and his mustache literally protruding from his nostrils. Lucy shook the thoughts from her head, now holding it up high. It's him with the whacked-out weird sense of beauty, she declared in her own mind, punching the air slightly. Unbeknownst to her, Natsu looked over his shoulder with embarrassment. How utterly useless she is. He spoke in his own mind. Hey, Natsu. Happy called from his feet, tugging on his pants slightly. So how are we going to infiltrate Duke Everlu's house if Lucy can't turn him on? Hey, Lucy called from behind them. We've tried doing things her way. Now we are doing things my way. Natsu's face and hand lit up, his face with a grin and his hand with fire. Lucy darted in front of him, throwing her arms out wide. Absolutely not, she yelled loudly, despite the fact they were supposed to be quiet. We need to sneak in, like ninjas. She continued in a hushed tone. Ninjas. Natsu and Happy spoke simultaneously. Natsu wrapping his scarf around his head, and forming a hand seal with his hands, Happy performing the same seal. We shall begin our infiltration mission now de Gazaru. I de Gazaru. Happy repeated in a cool, calm tone. Sprouting of wings technique de Gazaru. Happy's wings sprung from his back, he lifted Natsu up into the air, carrying him straight to the roof of the building, coming back again for Lucy. Natsu approached a window and placed his hand upon it. The surface of the window went red, before melting a hole through it. Natsu reached through and pulled on the door handle, opening it. Infiltration complete de Gazaru. He turned to face Lucy, Happy landing on his shoulder, standing in the same stance as Natsu. Lucy, you go for the book with Happy. I will look for any enemies de Gazaru. Before Lucy could reply, Natsu had dived into the house, leaving herself and Happy behind. Let's go, Lucy. I shall protect you with my life de Gazaru. Happy spoke in a serious tone, staring at her hard behind his hand seal. Lucy smacked her forehead, dragging her hand down her face. You can stop with the ninja stuff now. She mumbled out, walking into the house herself, Happy right behind her. Break. I see. So the mages wouldn't quit, Boyoyo. The Duke looked into his crystal ball. 6 figures standing over him looking into it as well. Your commands, master. 4 of the figures sighed heavily as the spoke, the other 2 remained quiet. All of you, go after the pink-haired boy, take Virgo with you. I will deal with the ugly girl myself. Everlu grinned, before sinking into the ground. Break. I can't breathe in that ninja stuff. Natsu whined in his mind as he pulled the scarf back to hanging around his neck. 4 figures burst through the ceiling above him. For master. They collectively shouted as they fell towards him. You're annoying. Natsu struck all of them with one swing of his arm, colliding them into each other and sending them catapulting across the room. They landed together in a heap, completely knocked out. The falling of something much heavier could be heard. He looked up, the gorilla maid with the pink hair came towards him. He flung his arms over his head, just before the impact, protecting his body from her heavy weight. He lifted her back up with some effort, before pushing her back into the sky. Natsu slammed his fists together, creating his magic seal. Karyu no Kajutsume. Natsu's arm engulfed in flame. He struck hard and quick across the head of the gorilla maid, knocking her into the previously floored group of maids, knocking them all out. Ha, too easy. Natsu gloated loudly as he looked at the pile of unconscious maids. The doors under the stairs opened slowly, creaking as they did so. Well, Mama will not be happy. A calm, yet burly voice spoke out. Yes, the Vanishing Brothers from Southern Wolves Mercenary Guild battling against Fairy Tail's Salamander. Mama will not be pleased at all. That we take down one of Fairy Tail's best, that is. A more polite and less burly voice replied. 2 figures emerged from the door. One was an extremely tall man, with long spiked hair set into 4 spikes, holding it up and shading his eyes from the light. His upper clothing consisted of a dark blue shirt with yellow streaks going down from the shoulders down his arms. The Southern Wolves Guild insignia rested on a white band wrapped around his right arm. The small had a bald head, with the exception of one lengthy braided ponytail at the back of his skull. His attire consisted of green pants and a white shirt. On his face the symbols for up, down, left and right were tattooed on his center forehead, center chin, left cheekbone and right cheekbone in that order. In his hand was a large frying pan. Lucy, go ahead and find the book. Happy, you take care of her. Natsu stared hard at both the mercenaries. No, I'll back you up. Happy refused loudly, clenching his fist. I'll be fine by myself. Go. Natsu reassured. Lucy and Happy nodded, before taking off into the closest room, which happened to be the library. So are we gonna do this or what? Natsu grinned madly, getting pumped up. We shall fire mage. The Vanish brothers are quite adept when dealing with fire mages. The smaller man looked on. Natsu slammed his fists together. Karyu no Hoko. A long line of fire tipped with a fireball flew from his mouth. The smaller brother darted in front. He held the pan up, which began absorbing the flames. This is why you are weak. The smaller brother commented after the flames were completely sucked up, leaving an astounding Natsu with mouth agape. It is every mage's weakness. You spend so much time training your mental focus in order to perform your magic. You neglect training your body. The taller brother carried the sentence on whilst slamming his fist towards Natsu's face, knocking him backwards. There is no way you can keep up with our speed and strength. We who train our bodies daily. Natsu stood without any trouble, grinning madly, his eyes locked with his opponent's. So when am I gonna see this speed and strength? The taller brother growled. Brother, let's use that move now. This guy's talking trash to us. The smaller brother smiled widely. Suddenly he was in front of Natsu, swinging the massive pan horizontally. Natsu jumped in order to dodge, landing on the golden tongue of Duke Everlu's statue, which took up most of the front hall. The brother followed his movements precisely, swinging the pan downwards this time. Natsu narrowly dodged. The golden tongue snapped off from the impact of the frying pan. The larger brother came from nowhere, plowing his fist in Natsu's stomach. Natsu landed face first in a heap, while the brother landed next to his brother. Quick brother, the larger called out. The smaller held out the pan, to which the larger jumped onto it. Both held their right hands up, their index and middle fingers extended. Begin. Finishing move. Heaven and Earth Extinct Slaying Attack. Break. I can't believe this book held such a secret. Lucy skimmed through the book with her Gale Force reading glasses, which allowed her to read extremely quickly. She had collected the book from the library when Duke Everlu arrived, claiming that the stupid book was his and ordering her to give it back. Lucy could tell that there was something secret within the book, and ran away in order to find a good place to read it. Lucy snapped the book shut, removing the glasses, her vision a tad hazy while returning to a normal speed. A pair of hands grasped her wrists from behind her. She whipped her head around, seeing the Duke sprouting from the wall behind her. So are you going to tell me that secret in the book, Boyoyo? The Duke laughed maniacally. You're a despicable man, Lucy grunted out, trying to free herself from the man's grip. What you did to Kemu? The man's grip loosened instantly. Lucy stepped away from the man and turned around. The look on the man's face was one of surprise and one of fury. So, he put that into the book, Boyoyo. The man's voice was deathly. He sunk back into the wall, before diving back out the floor just under Lucy, making her jump away. So he mentioned I blackmailed him into writing that book about me by threatening to revoke his citizenship. The man shouted as swam through the surface of the sewers. I'll need 2 things from you, ugly. 1. The book back. And 2. Your death, so no one else finds out. The man suddenly sprung towards Lucy, soaring through the air. Happy's small blue feet connected to the face of the man, striking him directly in the jaw. Lucy took the opportunity. She drew out a key. Gate of the Crab. I opened the Cancer. A doorbell chimed along with a release of smoke. From the smoke appeared a man in a blue shirt and dark trousers with a ring chain. 6 orange crab legs extending from his back, with 2 antennae-like appendages nestled in his red cornrows hairstyle. In his hands 2 large pairs of scissors rested. A crab, Happy shouted in Egtomon. Does he finish his sentences with, Connie, crab? The crabman turned to Lucy. Lucy-san, a bit early for a new haircut, isn't it? Ebby, shrimp. Ebby, Happy cried in horror, his face looked distressed. Because that's the most important thing right now. Lucy looked down annoyed at the stressed blue cat. Sorry Cancer, I need you to fight this man, she told the crabman. Cancer nodded, turning to Everlu. I shall give him a cut he shall never forget. Ebby. Ebby, I don't like it, get rid of him and summon something else. Happy complained to Lucy, almost begging her to do so. So you're a celestial spirit mage, Boyoyo? The Duke exclaimed in amusement. Before he drew out a golden key of his own. Then perhaps I shall level the playing field, Gate of the Virgin. I open the Virgo. Break. Begin. Finishing move. Heaven and Earth Extinct Slaying Attack. The larger brother was thrown into the air by the smaller. Natsu followed the man upwards. Watch the heavens, and the earth will eat you up. The smaller brother smacked Natsu hard with the pan, followed by a quick kick to the chest. Natsu rolled along the floor before stopping, glaring hard at the smaller brother. Watch the earth, and the sky will coming crashing down on you. The larger brother collided his knees into Natsu's back, smashing him into the floor. Performing a series of mid-air back flips, the brothers landed next to each other. No one has ever survived that attack. The smoke cleared. Natsu stood up lazily, barely scratched by the impact of the attack. Who's not surviving what now? He looked at both brothers bored, who were both panicking at the sight. Quick, flame cooking. The younger brother swung the pan around, using the flames previously collected by Natsu and launched them back at him. Collect the flames, change them, and send them right back. The fire hit Natsu head on. Their glee turned to horror when Natsu began inhaling the flames into himself. A monster. Both brothers hugged each other in fear, cowering in the presence of Natsu. Natsu smirked. Now that I've eaten, I'm all fired up. He slammed his fists together again. Karyu no Yokugeki. He jumped into the air, igniting his hands in twin streams of fire. He swung the streams down hard at the brothers, crashing into them and blowing them away. The impact caused a massive explosion, windows shattering upon impact, smoke escaping furiously from the battlefield. Natsu looked at the two singed brothers. Is that it? He turned to face the aftermath of his attack, paling slightly. Perhaps I overdid it. You destroyed Master's home. The gorilla maid grunted, struggling back to her feet. Natsu, not wasting a second, rushed towards her, grabbing hold of her by the neck. Break. Gate of the Virgin. I open thee. Virgo. He's a celestial spirit mage too. Lucy watched the man summon a spirit. The large gorilla maid from before appeared. She's the spirit. However, what the hell's going on? Natsu exclaimed from the neck of the maid. Natsu, what are you doing here? Lucy exclaimed in return. This one started moving, so I went to take her down. Next thing I knew, I don't even have a clue. Natsu cried out in confusion. Wait a minute, you grabbed her. That means Natsu must have traveled with her through the spirit world. How unbelievable. Lucy cried at the ending, clutching her head in shock. Virgo, get rid of them. Everlu shouted. Natsu jumped from the maid's neck, landing in front of Lucy. I'll blow you away. Karyu no Hoko. Natsu exclaimed his technique, sending a large roar of flame towards the maid. Lucy pulled out her whip, snapping it around Everlu. She threw him in the air towards Cancer, who in one clean cut, shaved off the remaining hair on his head and face, and knocked him out as well. The walls began crumbling down. Quickly, let's head back to Kabi before the Magic Council arrive. He has a lot of secrets to tell us. Lucy shouted, avoiding falling debris. Break. So this is your real house, Kabi? Naruto asked. The hut he now was in was small. Very much smaller than the mansion Kabi had previously been in. It does smell like him. Yes. I'm sorry for deceiving you earlier. But I had to make sure that guilds would take the request seriously, so I borrowed the mansion from a friend. But how did you know the truth, Natsu? I could smell the difference between you and the house. Natsu uninformatively explained. Smell the difference? Kabi thought over Natsu's reply, perplexed. Natsu has a heightened sense of smell. Natsu's blue cat happy explained after seeing Kabi's confused response. He could smell that your smell and the mansion's smell were different. The man seemed to nod in some form of understanding. Very well. Did you manage to destroy the book? He asked in anticipation. They seemed hesitant to answer. Well, Lucy began, pulling the book from behind her. Kabi took a step back in shock. What are you doing? I don't want that thing in my house. Get rid of it immediately. But Mr. Kabi, Lucy began, looking at the angered man with a solemn look. The book, it's for you. The man took another step back, this time in alarm. Impossible, he replied in a shaky breath. This book ruined my father, it ruined everything between us. If it's for me, hand it over and I'll burn it myself. He ordered aggressively, holding out his hand, snatching the book as soon as Lucy touched the book into his hand. He took a match in his other hand, lighting it quickly. Now to dispose of the last and worst book my father ever wrote. It's going to begin. Lucy spoke mysteriously. The flame of the match blew out, alarming everyone, seeing as there was no draft coming into the small hut. The book shone with a light, alleviating itself out of Kabi's hand. Letters flew out of it, lines, dancing around the room. Words sprung from the center, thousands of them instantly rearranging themselves and falling back into the book. Daybreak, as was written on the cover, lifted itself, moving its letters around. The light increased, blinding everyone. As the light faded, the book's title had changed, shocking Kabi more than the others. Dear Kabi, the book's new title read, in clear and bold as daybreak had been. What is this? Kabi looked fearfully at the book as it landed back in his hand, believing it to be some trick. Zekua Melon did not cut off his writing arm after he finished Daybreak, the worst novel of his career. Lucy spoke gently, but he cut off his writing arm after finishing the best book of his career, something that he could never improve or outdo. A letter to his son. To you, Kabi, that book is for you. With a shaky hand, Kabi opened the first page of the book, not sure if he really wanted to see the contents. He read over the opening page. Emotion filled him. My dear son, we will not speak for a while. This book is important to me in more ways than one, so I shall spend the time it takes to write it alone. I can no longer look you in the eye as a proud man after writing this book. Only shame would fill me. Duke Everlew, I shall curse his name longer after I turn to dust. He threatened to revoke our family's citizenships if I did not write a book detailing his extraordinary adventures. What lies I shall be writing as I did such a thing. But I have found something of more importance that I shall write about. I shall write all the things I could never say to you. I will explain in detail how much you mean to me, that this writing arm of mine, one that has made millions happy, would be for nothing against my pride for raising you into such a man. This will be the last time my pen touches paper. There is no possible way I could outmatch the emotion writing this has made me feel. You may not read this letter for a long time. It will probably fall into the hands of Everlew. I hope one day you will be able to read this letter. The time I took writing it was well spent, although it could never match the time I lost spending with you. Please remember, Kabi, my dear son. I am always thinking of you. I was always thinking of you. Tears leaked from Kabi's eyes. Clutching the book to his chest, he dropped to his knees, sobbing silently. I cannot destroy this book. He cried out quietly. Looks like we can't get that reward then. Natsu grinned madly, throwing his arms behind his head. Lucy turned around to him alarmed. Why not? She almost screamed out in defiance. The job specifically asked for us to destroy the book. Seeing as the book isn't going to be destroyed, we didn't complete the job. Natsu defended his claim, grinning madly at her. Happy added to Natsu's statement. Of course we can. We did such a good job. And I need to pay rent. Lucy continued her arguments against not taking the reward. Where would be the dignity in taking a reward for a job not completed? It's not the fairy tale way. Natsu once again defended. Before his face lit up in remembrance, he began rummaging through his pockets. But if you need money to pay for rent, you could sell this. Looks pretty fancy. Natsu pulled out a golden key, showing it to Lucy. Duke Everlew's golden zodiac key. Lucy snatched the key from Natsu's hand, admiring it. How did you get this? Big Button dropped it when he was arrested. Natsu told her, referencing Duke Everlew to the single large button he wore on his blazer. Lucy continued admiring the golden key. I've decided, I will accept this as a reward for our services. She shouted in glee. Is that okay with you? She turned to Kabi, who smiled with a nod of his head. And is that okay with you? She sent a deathly glare with her grim voice towards Natsu and his cat, who both nodded, gulping and sweating as they did so. Happy shakily replied, feeling very small under Lucy's death glare. Lucy's so scary, no wonder she'll never get a boyfriend. Break. The once boisterous hall had died down to what could be described as silence, occasionally creaks of wood breaking it. Naruto had continued to stare at the guild's hall long after everyone had left. Some had gone home, others had chosen to go on jobs. He was fascinated by the emotion that was shown. He was always fascinated by the emotion that the guild showed. Ever since his first day when they welcomed him warmly, with wide grins as if he was a friend who had been away for a long time, instead of some new guy. Everyone had been so welcoming. The doors creaked open, Naruto looking towards them. Well, not everyone, he commented when he saw who was there. The 5 staff strapped to his back made him instantly recognizable to him, but not to the other fairy tale mages. His face was covered a mask, leaving only his eyes visible, but even then, they had been blocked out by the lack of light being able to hit them. Mist gun. Naruto watched the man walk through the deadened hall, approaching the bar counter. Naruto. The man's voice was calm, no emotion being detected at all. He spoke without even looking at Naruto at all. It's rude to stare. He continued as he placed a straw in the cup of water he made for himself, putting the straw under the rags that were the lower half of his mask, slurping the water up quickly. Naruto jumped over the banister of the second floor, landing gracefully in the hall. He approached the masked man easily, not intimidated by him at all. The man moved over to the notice board, Naruto following him. Are you going on another job? Naruto asked the obvious question. Mistgun's reply was a nod, as he continued looking over the board. I'll take a more easier one today. He finally replied, taking a job from the board. Tell master I'm going on this job. He handed Naruto the flyer. 5 feet 000, 000 joules. And he calls a job like this easy? Naruto looked at the job request in interest. Alright, he told Mistgun, writing the job request on a piece of paper for the master. Did you find anything more about the anime you spoke of before? Naruto asked the man. I did. Mistgun gave a quick reply. I believe it's going to target Fairy Tail. Naruto's eyes widened. It is? We should inform Master right away. Naruto spoke alarmed. Mistgun shook his head. No, that would only worry him. It is, after all, only speculation. Anima targets areas of a high quantity of high-quality magic. Makarov, Laxus, Urza, Natsu, Gray, yourself. Anima will be attracted to that. Naruto was completely bought, but accepted it for now. He gave a quick nod of acceptance towards Mistgun. Mistgun only nodded in return, before continuing on his way back out. Naruto. Mistgun called when there was a small distance between them. Don't ever use dysphoria on me again, using its pressure and vulnerability together in order to open up to you, even if it was only slightly. Naruto smirked, leaning against the bar counter. Well, don't ever try to use sleep on me again. I know when mages are trying to cast manipulation types of magic on me. Mistgun let out one dry chuckle before turning around. Naruto. He spoke quite uneasy, very out of character. Don't worry about it. Naruto spoke in a reassuring voice. His hand lifted, pointing 2 fingers at Mistgun's masked face. That secret's safe with me. Naruto finished with a small smile. Laxus I'm not so sure about. He continued on with a chuckle. Mistgun nodded, turning back to face the grand doors. Laxus knows what would happen were he to tell anyone. Besides, he's not as bad as he makes himself out to be. The doors closed behind him, blocking him from Naruto's view. Naruto remained staring at the door for a few seconds. He looked around. The mess that was made was disgusting. Especially since the silent demon and his S-class mage was coming. Clone. 60 hands. Naruto mumbled, 30 clones produced from his body, all standing upright, looking at the true Naruto. Clean this place up, was his only order. The clones saluted, before running away to separate areas, cleaning the floors, walls and tables. Naruto turned around, heading for the stairs to the S-class floor. Tomorrow they arrive, I need to be prepared. Natsu's fiery personality is always harder to control subtly. He moved towards one of the S-class rooms, laying down on the bed. He was surprisingly tired, sleep taking him rather quickly. Tomorrow. The halls were filled with laughter. Unlike the deathly silent night before, the light of the fairy tale shone bright like the morning sun. Naruto made his way down the stairs of the S-class level. His presence did not go unnoticed, many mages silencing to gaze at him, confused looks on their faces. Naruto moved towards the bar, taking a seat next to the currently stripped down to his boxers Gray. Naruto flashed a quick smile to him before turning to face Mira. Hey, don't take this the wrong way, but who the hell are you? Gray asked. Everyone else seemed to nod at the question. Good morning Naruto, did you sleep well? Mira chimed loudly, appearing from absolutely nowhere. This startled many of the guild members. Many had never seen what he looked like. They stared intently at Naruto in awe. No offense, but I imagined you a lot older. Gray admitted, the other guild members nodding with his statement. How old are you anyway? 18. Naruto replied, his eyes moving over to Gray. Really? That makes you our youngest S-class mage. Although it's not that surprising, Urza is only 1 year older than you. Gray began mumbling to himself, but still loud enough for Naruto to hear him. You're almost naked by the way. Naruto pointed out quietly, pointing to the black-haired boy's heart-patterned boxers. Ah, what a horrible first impression. Gray jumped up in shock, looking down at himself in shame, before running away to find clothes, shouting apologies to everyone. Mira watched Gray's leaving form, before turning to Naruto. So, why are you here Naruto? You never come into the guild with dysphoria. Naruto was about answer when Makarov cut in from above, alerting everyone. Listen up, we have a very special guest arriving today. Zabuza Momochi is coming to sign an alliance treaty with us, which then in turn is one with other members of our alliance. I want you all on your best behavior. Kana, no alcohol. Gray, no stripping. Elfman, no talk of manly things. Loke, no womanizing. He pointed to each of them specifically as he called their names. The guild members' eyes widened, some began trembling. The silent demon is coming here. One asked quietly in a trembling voice. Zabuza was known for his quick-to-anger temper. Makarov looked around at everyone, who stared at him shocked in return. His brow rose, looking at them with slight annoyance. Well, what are you waiting for? Prepare yourselves. Break. Makarov's entire guild stood around him. He had never been more proud of them. They all looked so strong. There were a few missing, like Mistgun, Urza and Natsu, but most of them were here. Makarov fought back the tears in his eyes, but couldn't repress the smile of pride evident on his face. Get a grip, master. Naruto whispered next to him. Zabuza will be here any minute. Sorry, you're right. Makarov choked out quietly, before schooling his face into a more serious one. Seeing as Natsu isn't here, do you want me to quickly switch places with Laxus? Naruto crouched down slightly to ask the man in a whisper. No, it's fine. Makarov reassured him. You are an S-class mage of fairy tale, a good sign of power no matter what. I have never shared this experience with you yet. The man grinned, before turning back to face the door. Naruto smiled in return, before standing up straight, awaiting the arrival of the silent demon. The silence kicked in, so quiet in fact the approaching footsteps could be heard. He's here, was the guild's collective thought. The doors opened, revealing a boy with long black hair, most of it tied back into a bun, but two large bangs hung freely to frame his face. Around his body was a dark blue gi, white cloth lining the edges. Underneath was a darker blue shirt clinging to his skin. On his legs were blue pants matching the color of his undershirt, but much more loose covering down to his shins, which were wrapped in bandages going into his sandals, that tapped with every step he took. Haku, you're alone? Makarov identified the boy, who looked in return to Makarov. No, I'm not alone. Haku smiled softly in return, his voice was as soft as ever. He stepped slightly to the left, revealing a small, pure white fur cat. A serious expression on its face, black leggings covering its legs, and a tight corset-like garment covering most of its upper body, save the navel area, with long loose sleeve coming out of it to cover its arms. Everyone seems to forget about the cats. Its voice was firm and authoritative, but also feminine. The name's Byaku, by the way. The guild waved at the small female cat, all with one thought in their mind. A talking cat like Happy. Haku, my boy. Makarov interrupted the introductions. When will Zabuza be arriving? The boy's soft smile faded. Even the strong look the female cat gave off caved. She sniffled slightly, a tear dropping from her eye. Zabuza will not be coming. Haku answered weakly, his voice shaking. He is dead, Makarov-san. The eyes of everyone present widened, many gasping from the shock of the revelation. Hearing about someone like Zabuza dying was not something they heard about every day. Zabuza died, Makarov repeated quietly. Then who sent the alliance request? I did, Haku answered, daring to look Makarov in the eyes. As guild master of Demon Mist. What? A shout was heard from above. Everyone turned to see Laxus sitting on the banister, fury present on his face. He jumped from the banister down in between Haku and Fairy Tail Guild, before turning to Makarov in rage. This is a joke. Zabuza was already less than half your age, and this guy is 1 year younger than me. Yet still you refuse to retire and let the new generation take over this guild. Refusing to let me take over this guild? He shouted in a fury at Makarov. Surely this is a sign your time is up. No. Everyone turned to look at the one who interrupted Laxus's complaining. I am not ready for the role of guild master. But I shall honor Zabuza's last request. Haku explained, staring intently at the whole guild. Haku, I must ask. Makarov approached the boy, looking solemnly into his eyes. How did Zabuza die? Or better yet, how does someone of Zabuza's standing, someone far stronger than even my ace of fairy tale, die so young? He was killed, Haku eventually replied, by a man from one of the 4 pillars of the Balam Alliance, Grimoire Heart. A man named Azuma. Grimoire Heart. Makarov was stunned. Finally some information on one of the 3 pillars, at the cost of one of their own strongest allies. And how did it happen? Haku sighed out of sadness. The man used some sort of explosion magic. He could create them anywhere at will, even on the body. He challenged Zabuza simply for the thrill of fighting someone strong. And he lost. Zabuza's mist is made of water. The mist acted as a neutralizer for the explosions. nullifying them by making the air too damp to ignite. So then why is Zabuza dead? Laxus asked rudely. This guy was making no sense. Because the man is a coward. Haku's voice rose in anger, something Makarov even doubted the boy possessed. He pulled a very cowardly stunt to kill Zabuza. Flashback break. You lose, now leave my guild in peace. Zabuza stared the man down. He was completely unscathed. The same could not be said for his opponent, battered and cut. Blood leaking down the left side of the man's face, where Zabuza had slashed at him, the man barely dodging a vertical bisecting. You assume that because I am down I am defeated. The man panted out, but still had returned to the stoic persona he possessed when he entered the guild, their battle now taking them far away from it. I know your weakness, Zabuza, and I shall exploit it. If I fall, I shall take your heart with me. The man touched the nearest tree, sinking into it slowly. Zabuza rushed at him, a large knife replacing his right arm. He slashed down at the man's position, missing barely. What does he mean, my heart? Zabuza pondered. There was no weakness to his or any heart. Haku had shown him that years ago when they first met, when Haku was still a young man recently separated from his mother. He had raised Haku into the man he became, someone Zabuza would have called a son. Zabuza's eyes went wide in realization. My heart. Haku. He turned and raced back towards his guild. He knew Haku had followed him some way out of the guild during the beginning of their battle. He hoped he wasn't too late. Break. Zabuza crashed into Haku's location. Haku was trapped in some kind of vines sprouting from the earth. A timer counting down fast on the front. 90 seconds remained, ticking down even now. Zabuza rushed towards him, trying to rip the vines from Haku. Whatever he tore away was replaced post-haste. That won't work. The stoic voice of his opponent appeared behind him. And there's no way you can collect enough humidity to nullify that explosion in time. Say goodbye to your precious protege. The man chuckled darkly, sinking back into the closest tree. You bastard. Zabuza yelled at the vacant spot where Azuma once stood. He turned back to Haku, ripping the bandages from around his face, letting Haku glimpse his full face one last time. Haku looked at Zabuza, tears forming in his eyes. Zabuza-san. He sniffled. He cannot leave a certain radius or this bomb will deactivate. Collect your mist and use it to locate him. When the explosion goes off it will distract him. You will have a chance to kill him. Take it. Zabuza's face lightened up to chuckle. Haku. He sounded surprised. When did you grow the balls to order me around? He moved his hand to cradle Haku's cheek, who moved into it. I have taught you all I can, even though you only accepted 3 of my magic spells. Never repeat this, but sometimes I look at you like a father would a son, full of pride. And I see you as a father. Haku's tears began to flow more fuller. No one has ever cared for me as much as you have. I thought I could never fill the void my mother left. But you did. I am proud of you, Haku, remember that. Zabuza repeated, his smile growing only slightly bigger. Too proud to watch you die. His hand left Haku's cheek. The smile faded from his face. Inhaling deeply, he slapped the palms of his 2 hands together. Building his focus, sealing death art, protection of a demon. Do not use that technique, please. Haku pleaded, his face full of shock and worry. The tears now freely pouring from his face. Zabuza let out another chuckle. What kind of demon mist guild master cries? It seemed to stop Haku's sobbing, looking at Zabuza in confusion. Correct, you are the one I choose to succeed me. You will make a fine guild master. I have been training you to be one ever since I first saw your magic. Zabuza explained, assuring Haku of his elevation in rank. A small bubble wrapped around the bomb, blood red in color, but transparent. The ticking timer was still visible to them both, 15 seconds. Zabuza stepped away from Haku. A funnel-like tube stretching from the bubble around the bomb followed him, before a larger bubble formed around himself. Sealing death art. Protection of a demon. What it says on the tin, death is sealed when the technique is used. Infinite protection for one, at the cost of the life of another. Zabuza had used this technique to escape death from his enemies, by using them as the sacrifice. But Zabuza's choice was clear now. Haku was almost stronger than him, and he had many more years ahead than him to grow. Haku, tell everyone in the guild, that they are fantastic mages, and that they will live on without me. I am glad I was able to lead them. Ask them to follow you as they did me. Zabuza gave his final words, a single tear dropped from his eye. And, Go to Fairy Tail, Haku. Tell Makarov, I'm sorry, that I was too proud to accept that alliance request years ago. 0. Zabuza-san, Haku screamed. The bomb exploded, expanding the small bubble around it slightly, before firing up the tunnel and into Zabuza's bubble. There were no screams of agony. Zabuza's body was engulfed in the fires. Haku was unable to see through it. Haku turned away as much as he couldn't bear to see this. The light of the fire was visible through his closed eyes. He could only wait for the fires to die down. It took a while, but the brightness began to fade. Haku felt the restraint of the vines loosen, allowing him freedom. He opened his eyes, it was all gone. The bubble, the explosion, the vines. Azuma probably didn't wait around to admire his handiwork, leaving to be healed as soon as it detonated. All he knew was that either Haku was dead, or Zabuza was, or they both were. Haku looked at the ground. Zabuza's body lay there motionless, charred beyond recognition. Haku approached the remains, dropping to his knees next to it. His head dropped to place his forehead on Zabuza's chest, as if by some chance he would be able to hear a heartbeat. There was none. There was nothing Haku could do except one thing: sob and mourn the loss of a father, mentor and friend. Flashback end break. Haku's story ended. Makarov bowed his head. Zabuza, you died as a true guild master, not allowing any of your family to die. There was no need for Makarov to request it. His fairy tale mages had already followed suit, bowing their heads in respect, giving a moment of silence for heaven's resident demon. Before it was interrupted by a loud scoff, everyone looked to its origin. Laxus, who was looking down at Haku. Zabuza died like a weakling. And you are. He was cut off. Haku had closed the gap in a fraction of a second. A pipe made of ice covered his arm up to his hand, which was pointed across Laxus's throat. Never insult Zabuza-san. His voice was quiet, but filled to the brim with fury. Everyone was alarmed at the display of speed Haku showed. They had never seen any move so fast, not even Jet. Was that another one of your magics? Mikao asked the boy. His reply was a shake to the head. It wasn't my magic. Everyone's alarm doubled. That was his natural speed. At that very unfortunate second in time for Makarov, Natsu bounced in, loudly proclaiming that another job was well done. Happy and Lucy not far behind him. This can't end well. Makarov sighed internally. Natsu caught the mystery man with an ice spike pointed at Laxus's throat. Hey you, he shouted furiously. Why are you threatening my guildmate? Are you going to try assassinate him? He completely got the wrong message. Natsu jumped into the air, slamming his fists together, intending to blast this mystery guy to smithereens. Karyu no. He was cut off by a sharp kick to the face. Launching into the nearby wall to the right, he crashed into the furniture against the wall, crushing it under him. Natsu looked up to face his attacker. It was a cat, but it wasn't a cat. It was a woman, with pure white fur and a long tail. She had a slender, yet curvaceous build. Black leggings covering her legs and a corset-like top uncovering her upper body, but revealing her midsection. Long sleeves covering her arms. The Catwoman glared at Natsu hard, full of anger. Before her body shrunk, down to the same size and shape as Happy. Whoa! Natsu was extremely surprised. Forgetting about the previous kick to the face, he darted next to her, crouching down to her level. How did you do that? He asked in full interest. Aside from my era magic, I have what is called speed mode. It increases the size of my body to make me more nimble and quick, as well as more flexible. Byaku explained, before turning around and climbing up Haku to rest on his shoulder. Wow! Natsu's face grew into a wide grin. He turned to Happy, who looked equally impressed. Can you do anything like that, Happy? I'll try. Happy replied ecstatically. He tensed every muscle in his body, turning from his normal blue to a deep red from strain. Teeth clenched together as he tried to focus. He finally gave up, releasing a sigh. I believe it's Nay. Lucy muttered behind him. Everyone, let's calm down. Naruto stepped forward. He released dysphoria. Discouragement out into the guild. It was the best selection for keeping people quiet. He turned to Makarov, smiling slightly. Please continue, master. Makarov nodded, before turning to Laxus. Leave Laxus, you're only making things worse. His tone was an ordering one, but not a harsh tone. Laxus let out another scoff. Not even trying to argue, he left for the door in earnest, barging into Haku's shoulder as he left. Naruto stepped back into the guild members, switching his focus to solely on Natsu and Happy. I hope they don't question why Haku has a cat like Natsu. Haku was the one to speak first. I apologize for the display. It's alright. These things are very boring, everyone's just a little agitated. Makarov gave the young boy a large smile. Now I've already done all the paperwork and signed it. It just needs your signature as well. Makarov gestured towards the bar counter, where a golden sheet of paper rested. A pay lay next to it, begging to be used. Haku and Makarov approached it, Haku taking up the pen. He slowly moved towards the paper before signing it. Once he was done, he placed the pen back down, handing the paper over to Makarov. Makarov grinned upon received the paper. He jumped onto the counter and turned to face his guild. Fairy Tail, we've just formed a new alliance. Do you all know what this calls for? Party. The guild shouted in return. They scattered instantly, collecting alcohol and food. Will you stay for the celebrations, Guild Master Haku? Makarov teased the boy with the name. In fact, I demand you stay for the festivities. Haku looked around to the already on the way party. Well, I am tired, and I do need a place to stay. I left the guild in the hands of two S-class mages, but I don't think I can leave them long. Makarov smiled, patting him on the shoulder. You can one of my S-class rooms on the second floor. And you can set off back to Demon Mist in a couple of days. Break. Sasuke was leaning casually against the wall. His report on the abolition of the Dark Guild Ogre Stomp had just gone through, and now he stood waiting for his next assignment. What's taking so long? He wondered, growing impatient. Sasuke was never one for waiting. The doors opened slowly. Of all people to give him his next assignment, it had to be her. The long black hair, the sweet, yet fierce black eyes. A short white robe being the only thing covering her, with a yellow sash tying it together. In her hands rested the assignment briefing. Hello Sasuke-kun. She spoke seductively, as if she believed her charms worked on him. Altair. He replied bluntly, glancing her way only momentarily to greet her. She stepped closer to him until they were only inches apart. She smiled sweetly, lifting a hand to touch his face gently, before tracing her fingers continuously across his cheek. Was your last assignment difficult? She looked upon him with compassion and trace amounts of admiration. Ogre Stomp was pathetic. Now what is my next assignment? He replied quickly. He wanted to get away from this girl. I've been thinking Sasuke-kun. She started, moving ever closer to him, until her ample bosom was pressed against his chest slightly. You never show any interest in me. So I'm beginning to wonder, is the way I am around you just natural, or are you placing me under Euphoria's lust? I assure you it's just natural. Sasuke placed his hand on her shoulders, pushing her away from him gently. Because there's no way I'd make a girl like you come onto me through my own actions. Her smile changed, from one of attraction to a more dark smirk. She chuckled briefly before handing him his assignment. We shall see about that one day, Sasuke-kun. She finished with a wink before walking away slowly, her hips swaying with every step. Sasuke watched her leave. No matter what, he could never understand what went through her mind. And it irritated him to no end. That girl is dangerous. He commented to himself before turning his attention to the briefing of his next assignment. He opened the first page, his face instantly turned to a smirk. Finally the orders came through. He thought in anticipation. He had been pressing the warrant for this guild for a while now. Finally, he could rid the world of them. Eisenwald, a dark guild known for the abnormally high amount of assassination requests undertaken. Most attributable to Eisenwald's ace, Aragorn, the Shinigami, a mage who specifically undertook assassination jobs. Finally he had the approval to take them down. He flipped to the back page, where his initial pre-assignment report was always placed. He filled out the details, confirming that this time he wasn't taking any of the Rune Knights. I'll do this one by myself. He flipped back to read through Eisenwald's current movements, in order to estimate their future ones. Sasuke's mind continued to think about one thing. Aragorn, user of wind magic. Perhaps you will be the challenge I'm looking for. His smirk turned serious, snapping the report shut. He began walking down the long corridor of the Magic Council, towards his next assignment. And if not, then your magic will be good practice for when I battle the real thing. His eyes switched to their blood-red nature, the 3 tomo in each eye spinning madly. He had the opportunity to copy it, but had already copied Clone during the only fight when he showed it, so he couldn't copy something new for 1 hour, and that was when he used it. He touched his stomach, the area where the attack hit. The results were devastating. The closest he ever came to winning a fight against him was because of that attack, the numerous lacerations that went across his body. Even the area around him was destroyed, and it was still one of the weaker attacks in that magic's arsenal. His mind traced back to when he shouted that attack. Furyu no Hoko. Break. And so this day come to an end. Naruto watched the setting sun. Fairy Tail still partying under what little light it gave. From the horizon came a girl, with hair only slightly redder than the sun around her. Silver armor covering her body with a short blue skirt appearing underneath it. A large horn, decorated with ornaments, rested on her shoulder, she carrying it effortlessly. She approached him, stopping only to the left in front of him. She shifted the horn from her right shoulder to her left, her free arm now being closer to him. Well, this is a surprise. She smirked at him. You showing your face to the guild. What's the occasion? An alliance was formed between Demon Mist and Fairy Tail. He smiled in return, seeing the slight surprise edge onto the girl's face. The silent demon wanted an alliance. I'm surprised Zabuza even has those thoughts. She chuckled, not noticing Naruto's falling face. Zabuza's dead, Urza. He died protecting Haku. Her silence said it all. Naruto caught her up to speed, informing her of Zabuza's demise. Her head bowed in silence. Her eyes filled with sadness. It's a terrible loss. I quite liked Zabuza. Didn't we all? Naruto replied sadly, his own head bowing down. A steel touch brushed against his shoulder. He looked to see Urza. Her hand now rested on his shoulder. A smile set on her face, one of understanding, letting him know he'd be okay. Naruto's own hand came up and gently rested on hers, patting it softly. He smiled in return at her before she nodded, entering the guild. Naruto's head turned to watch her enter the guild. Urza, there is something in your eyes, something you're trying so very hard to hide. I would know, I do the same thing. Excuse me. He heard to the left of him. The blonde girl who was with Natsu stood there staring at him. Are you Naruto? Naruto gave a quick nod in reply, before turning to stare back out into the sunset. Whoa, Lucy thought, flabbergasted. Since everyone calls Naruto and Sasuke opposites, and even their magic oppose each other, I thought they would be opposites in every way, including physical appearance. But he is just as good looking as Sasuke. His face seems more brighter with the bright blonde hair. Lucy gazed at his facial features, how he stood calmly and stoically, but still managed to have an open aura to himself. I'm surprised that you are so young. Naruto finished her sentence for her, seeing that she was struggling to finish it. Apparently you're not the only one who thinks that. He sighed. I didn't mean any offense. Lucy stammered out, a blush steadily appearing on her face. It's just that I've never seen you before. I've never seen you in any section of Sorcerer's magazine before, either. I don't really care for things like that. Naruto informed her, looking over to her as she now began fidgeting on the spot. It's not my style. Lucy nodded, suddenly becoming more relaxed, yet the blush intensified. They say you fight constantly with Sasuke Uchiha from the Magic Council. What is he like? Loke and Hibiki's personalities, likes and dislikes were mentioned in the article. Yet they couldn't get an interview with Sasuke. Sasuke is very powerful, and extremely proud. There aren't many things he does like, and he hates a lot of things. Naruto informed her casually, before his eyebrow rose in understanding, a knowing smirk appearing on his face. He turned around to face her fully. Why? Would you like me to introduce you to him? Lucy took a startled step back, shaking her head and her hands stretched out in front of body wildly. You shall do no such thing. Her voice was loud and in a pleading tone. Naruto laughed loudly, before putting his hands on her shoulders, calming her down. It's all right, go back inside and enjoy the rest of the party. He smiled at her, she smiled back, but weakly, mumbling something to herself as he turned her around and sent her back into the party. Once she had entered the guild, Naruto turned to face the sunset once again. The girl had brought his thoughts towards Sasuke. Sasuke, unlike me, you chose to live the life you do. One day you will see the light. Whether or not you forgive Fairy Tail is out of my hands. But you will come to terms with the world. I know it. Break. Ivan Draar paced the hall of his Grand Raven Tail Guild, stroking his beard in thought. In front of him stood what the Magic Council call a traitor. A man who would capture rogue or wandering mages and place them in captivity, selling them off to dark guilds at a price. A quick way to reinforce numbers. This specific man boasted only the finest selection, shackled together and on their knees in front of Ivan. He walked up the line of them slowly, examining them. None of them was of interest. They all seemed fearful, some even crying. He wouldn't have someone like that in his noble guild. But then he stopped. This one was of interest. His hair was blood red and spiky. He seemed completely devoid of any emotion. In fact, he even looked uninterested in Ivan's presence. Ivan crouched down to one knee, tilted the boy's head up. The black rings around his eyes showed a sort of instability, but his teal eyes were just as devoid of emotion as the rest of his face. "Trady-chan, what can this one do?" Ivan asked, interested in the boy. That one used some sort of sand-based magic, a very powerful one at that. In fact, the only reason he was captured was because he used himself as a distraction in order to let whatever was traveling with him escape. The man spoke with a boastful tone to his voice, trying to ensure the quality of his stock. Ivan gave a nod, turning his attention back to the boy. He noticed a red marking underneath the boy's messy locks for a fringe. He brushed it aside, revealing a tattoo written on the left side of his forehead. Love, tattooed on his face, was the kanji symbol for love. Ivan's face crumpled slightly. "What's your name, boy?" He received no reply. The only acknowledgement of the question was the boy's eyes focusing in on Ivan's own. Ivan sighed. He didn't want anyone with any connections to love in his guild. It weakened them. He stood back up straight, walking towards the trader, placing a hand on his shoulder as he turned back to face the man's stock. The man himself jumped slightly at the touch. "Tell me, Trady-chan, how do you keep them contained? Surely if they were as strong as you make them out to be, they could easily escape those shackles?" "Ah, but these shackles are made out of a special lacrima, called infector lacrima. When it comes into direct contact of a mage, the lacrima releases a fluid of some sorts, invisible to the naked eye, into the mage's magic stores inside their bodies, disrupting the magic with a foreign body. It nullifies any strength drawn from them, making them as weak as a normal human." The trader explained in detail. Infector lacrima was a very rare and expensive thing to come across, so he made sure to get a large quantity of it. The seller couldn't disagree, seeing as he killed him to collect it. "Very impressive." Ivan let out a maniac chuckle. The trader winced at the sudden increase in grip on his shoulder. "Or maybe, they're not as strong as you make them out to be." The trader's body shrunk into a white paper shikigami. Ivan's hand clamped around the body, before he brought it up to his mouth, biting the head off in one bite, munching on it loudly, before spitting it back out. He looked towards the group of captured mages, all except from the love boy cowering in fear. He moved toward the shackles, snapping them with his hands like toothpicks. The mages looked at their free hands with shock, before looking back at Ivan, who looked uninterested. "Leave now, Raventail has no place for weaklings like yourself. And never speak to anyone of how a merciful Ivan Dreyar released you, or I shall kill you." The man's eyes widened, looking at the group. They needed no second warning. They rushed upwards and towards the entrance of Raventail, back into the light. Ivan turned to head back to his office, when he felt the presence of someone still in the hall. He turned to see the red-haired love boy still in the room, standing slowly up to his feet, before staring at Ivan. Ivan held the boy's stare for a while, before his eyes began to get to him. The boy refused to move in any way. "What?" Ivan eventually asked in annoyance. "Nothing," the boy answered coldly, before turning and walking out of the guild, finally leaving Ivan alone. Ivan shrugged his shoulders at the boy's actions. "Weirdo," he muttered loudly, before turning to head back to his office. Finishing the preparations for his plans were vital. Break. A slightly drunken Makarov threw his arm around the younger Haku, who had barely touched any alcohol. "You know, Haku," Makarov hiccuped loudly, "you'll have to attend the regular meeting with us other guild masters now that you're part of the alliance. Terribly boring things they are." He began laughing wholeheartedly, before falling off the bar counter backwards, instead of being knocked out. He went into a peaceful slumber. "Excuse me, Haku-san." He turned to see the red-haired Urza standing in front of them. "Have you seen Natsu or Gray? Do you mean those two over there?" He pointed to the two young mages, facing each other off. "You jerk. You imbecile. Don't be making up insults, you stripping pervert. Imbecile means stupid, stupid. Hey, They both turned shakily, Urza approaching both of them, anger evident in her eyes. Are you two fighting again? The entire disposition swapped, hugging each other around the shoulders, fake smiles placed on their faces. No, we were just talking loudly, as friends do. Gray stumbled out to her. Natsu reassured, performing a stance all too similar to his blue cat, happy. Good, Urza smiled cheerfully. Because I need you two to help me on a job. It requires absolute cooperation. I won't take no for an answer. Both of their laughs was loud and completely forced. Now why would we ever say no to you, Urza? Good, we leave tomorrow, so get a good night's rest. Urza almost ordered, to which they both complied, dropping to the floor like bricks, praying for sleep to take them. Urza smiled at the two of them, giving a quick nod. She continued on. Unaware to her, Mira had been watching the entire scene. Oh no, she thought worriedly. Urza, Gray and Natsu, together on one team. This could be the strongest team in fairy tale history. The Dark Guild Eisenwald. Sasuke stared at the bleak mansion in front of him, situated at the end of a row of dead trees in the midst of a graveyard. Dark guilds always locate themselves in horrid, bleak settings. It gives their location away so easily. He smirked. It didn't care, it just made his job a lot more easier. Now he didn't have to track them down. I should prepare now. He closed his eyes, breathing inwards deeply for a second. Euphoria. Exhilaration. He spoke quietly. He felt his blood flare. It was a natural affect of the magic. He began to move towards the guild. A bear trap suddenly went off below his left foot, as if by itself. His leg swung out of the trap seconds before it clamped shut. Exhilaration boosts my reaction speed. Something like that isn't going to hit me. Sasuke smirked, moving closer towards the guild. Euphoria. Sublime. He activated the second magic. Just to make sure I receive a warm welcoming. What's going on? Stark looked around at his guild. They all seemed giddy, so relaxed, calmly speaking to one another about what great guild mates they are. This isn't them. They look for any reason to fight every chance they get. Someone's doing this to them. Stark looked around for any source of unfamiliarity. I'm sorry, Stark Schmers, Dark Guild Master of Eisenwald. The doors of the guild casually opened, revealing a young man dressed in a black jacket, black pants and a low V-neck silver shirt. A large bag was flung of his shoulder. The boy was smirking confidently as he entered the guild. Sorry that you can join your guild in the happy atmosphere. Keeping you out of it was my doing. I'd like to fight the Master of Eisenwald at his best. The boy spoke, brimming with confidence, stopping his speech as he stood in the center of the guild hall. This boy bypassed all the traps we set out. Stark thought, quite astonished. Only Eisenwald members knew the exact location of every trap. If Aragorn and his team has betrayed me. He noted the team's absence, as well as a portion of the lesser guild members. Stark eventually scoffed at the boy's request. You're not with the trouble, boy. Aragorn is away right now, but I bet even my second best mage can beat you without any problems. Sasuke smirked, letting out a dry chuckle. Bet accepted, but to make sure you don't cheat. He inhaled deeply. Euphoria. Lion's magnificence. He exhaled. Suddenly all his guild members looked towards the boy in wonder. He threw the bag forwards. Shackles flew out of it as it hit the floor. Each of you take a pair of shackles and lock your hands behind your backs. Help each other if need be. After that, get to your knees facing that wall over there. Line up against it. Stark was alarmed. Every guild member did just as the boy commanded, taking the shackles, moving over to where the boy had told them to move. Why are you taking his orders? Stark shouted in a fury. I am your guild master. It's not like they have a choice. He turned to look at the boy who answered him. They are so inspired and awestruck by my presence that they wish to make me happy, obeying my every order no matter what. I could have told them to kill you, kill each other, or kill themselves. And they would have done it with a smile on their face. Sasuke smirked, tilted his head upwards to look down at Stark. That is Euphoria. Lion's magnificence. Stark growled in frustration. So he made the serene atmosphere as well. What an interesting magic, but I doubt he would be interested in joining Eisenwald. Stark commented in his mind, what a powerful ally this boy could have been. Bring out your man, I can sense his magic above us. He's the only one left who's not in shackles, other than yourself. Sasuke commented, looking upwards. Stark formed a smirk of his own. Seichime, I have a battler for you. Come and say hello. Stark called upwards, his voice echoing through the guild. Less than a few moments later, a colossus of a man crashed down meters in front of Sasuke. The widest grin set on his face, every muscle on his body hulked with anticipation. His eyes set open Sasuke, like locking onto a target. Sasuke stared back up to the giant with some interest. I wasn't expecting this. The man must have stood 10 feet high. Simple blue pants were his only form of clothing other than bandages wrapped around his wrists. The man's giggle was dark and heavy, like some sort of twisted psychotic child. This is Seichime Schlam. After Aragorn and myself, there is no one stronger in my guild. Although physically, his strength towers above my own and Aragorn's. Stark explained. Seichime, this is your opponent. The man chuckled again. Small one, isn't he? Sasuke was quite taken back by the civilized tone of voice the man possessed. He was half expecting a big dumb brute that couldn't form a sentence longer than 5 words. Am I allowed to kill him? He asked Stark, turning to find his answer. A nod came from Stark, Seichime's grin widening to extraordinary proportions. Brown water began leaking out of the man's body. A little bit of information for you, boy. Seichime's grin suddenly vanished, a look of fury etched on his face. They call me the Lurker, for my magic. Murky water, the speed and fluidity of water, mixed into the brute strength of earth. Live longer than 5 minutes, and maybe I'll show you how I achieved my nickname. Sasuke let off a loud scoff. I'm not impressed, I've seen scary things than water. A torrent of water crashed into his body, throwing him into the wall behind him. Sasuke felt the wall crack behind him. The torrent eventually gave up, letting Sasuke drop to the floor. That was Howitzer. So, you were saying something about water not being scary? Seichime smiled cockily, looking towards the floored Uchiha. He was right, that was fast, and the strength is stronger than normal water element magic. Perhaps I underestimated him. Sasuke slowly rose to his feet, moving back towards the center of the room. But still, I won't waste copy wheel eye on such a weaker magic. Weak, Seichime screamed out. No one calls me weak. Howitzer. He roared ferociously, thrust his arms forward, torrents of water shot with them. Sasuke leapt over the shots, moving constantly around, dodging each blast. He doesn't switch the direction after he fires them. The attacks most likely lose momentum if he did. Sasuke thought, ducking under another blast. But the tactic is good, either you get hit by Howitzer, or you figure it out and run around dodging them, effectively tiring yourself out. While he doesn't make a single movement. He lost focus for just a second, another cannon-powered shot of water blasted against his body, hurling Sasuke across the ground. Sasuke winced as his body rolled along the ground to a halt, clutching his ribs. I need to speed things up a bit. He spoke aloud. Seichime began laughing maniacally. Launching another torrent of water towards Sasuke, he rolled out the way quickly, getting to his feet. Sasuke stood still. He slapped his right palm onto the balled fist of his left. The pose stopped Seichime's attacks, leaving him confused. Thunder make. Dynamo. An air of yellow electricity flared around Sasuke, before receding back into his body. Every muscle began twitching abnormally fast, sparks of electricity flying off at every movement. Even his blinking sent small sparks off. He suddenly disappeared. Seichime felt a thrust rammed straight into his jaw. The boy was underneath him, delivering the uppercut. Seichime's body flew upwards into the air. Only a slight amount, but he was still off the ground. Dynamo, it courses electricity through my body, increasing my speed and strength. Sasuke continued thrusting his fist upwards, pushing against the man's jaw. He punched Seichime into the air. What is he? The lion's magnificence effect had worn off, when Sasuke was blasted by the first torrent of water. They had tried to free themselves at that point, but something was interrupting the magic flow around their bodies. Leaving them unable to move, some chained together. The Eisenwald Guild members only stared in horror at the boy in front of them. He lifted Seichime? This isn't good. Seichime doesn't like to be off the ground. Especially when someone else causes it. Stark began panicking. Seichime would attack everyone around him. Seeing as most of his guild was defenseless, they were wide open. He put me in the air. Seichime screamed. Grasping his head, his upper body swung around in all directions. Seichime screaming in horror as he did so. I'll kill him right now. No one interfere or you'll share his fate. He screamed to his guild. I've never seen Seichime with this much control over his anger before, to be targeting one person only. Stark was amazed. This boy was strong, but now he was dead, and improved Seichime because of it. I should thank you, boy. Your death has given me some control over Seichime. Seichime began regurgitating massive amounts of his brown water, flooding the floor with it. He slammed his hands together. Even from the distance they were away, the impact still made the water ripple strongly. Murky water. That which lurks within the depths. He screamed out maniacally. The water shot upwards in a perfect circle around Sasuke, creating a wall around him. I'm guessing this is why they call him the Lurker. The water is totally opaque. I can't see through it. Sasuke looked around. The water began closing in. As it did, the walls around high grew higher. He's cutting off my ability to move. A rock shot out and struck him directly in the cheek. Sasuke felt the skin rip from his face as the rock flew past, going into the wall on the other side of the cage of water. Sasuke held his cheek, a small stream of blood spilling out. The speed of water, the brute strength of earth. Sasuke remembered the words spoken early. I see, the brown color is caused by a large amount of mud and dirt mixed into the water. He compresses it down to form larger rocks, and can launch them towards whoever is trapped in here at any direction. Sasuke looked upwards, to the height of the circular wall of water. Even from above, this magic is dangerous. I have to find a way out. Sasuke looked for any opening. More rocks began firing out of the walls. Sasuke jumped over each of them. Rocks struck him in the back, sending him back towards the ground. Another one shot directly in front of him. Sasuke saw behind it. The rock struck him in the stomach, but he had found it. I know how to get out. Sasuke looked towards the wall of water, dodging any incoming rocks. When the rocks fire out, they leave a small hole in the wall. It's carried upwards by the flow of the water and refilled, but for that time the walls have cracks. Sasuke smirked. He knew he could get out. These tiny rocks aren't going to kill me. You'll need something bigger, or I'll make you fly higher than the clouds. Sasuke taunted. The man was letting his rage cloud his judgment. Shut up, the man yelled in return. You want bigger, I'll show you bigger. Sasuke waited, looking around for where the rock was coming from. He saw a shadow above him. It's too high. The boulder squeezed through the walls. The size was immense. It completely covered the area Sasuke was standing on. Sasuke jumped upwards. There was enough space. He caught onto the boulder and climbed around it, just barely avoiding being crushed between the wall and the boulder. And there it was, the giant hole in the wall. Sasuke jumped through it, landing on the outside, shocking Stark and the Eisenwald guild members. He's still alive. The guild members shouted in horror, looking towards the scratched boy. Sasuke turned to see his prison. The water around it caved down, but Seichime was not stationed anywhere around it. Where is he? A magic like that, he wouldn't have been able to deactivate it that fast and continue on. Sasuke's eyes darted in every direction. Seichime's dark giggle rang through his ears. I told you, survive longer than 5 minutes, and I show you how I achieved my nickname. Sasuke felt an iron grip around his leg. He yelled out in pain. He looked down. The sight shocked him. Seichime's hand was extending out of the ground, and only his hand. His head slowly squeezed out of the ground as well, smiling psychotically at him. This is why they call me the Lurker. Murky water's final stage. A fonk. It turns my entire body into the very same liquid I attack with, enabling me to sneak up on people from underneath them. Perfect for assassinations. The man cackles slowly, the volume of his laugh building up into he howled with laughter. Sasuke jumped upwards. The man came up with him, his feet still on the ground. His grip on Sasuke's shin didn't loosen, dragging him back down. He slammed Sasuke into the ground, the impact filling the hall with a scream of pain. Seichime lifted Sasuke back up, hanging upside down. No one lives through a fonk. Consider yourself lucky to even have been able to touch me. His civilized tone returned. Sasuke punched his fist forwards, his fist diving into the liquid chest of his opponent. A grip suddenly tightened around Sasuke's wrist. It wasn't as hard as the one around his leg, but it held him in place. I have captured you. Now, you will die in the murky depths. Seichime smirked confidently. Sasuke smirked himself. If this guy's made out of water. He thrust his free hand into the man's chest, hitting the exact same spot as his previously trapped hand did. The grip moved around his other hand, trapping them together. You've sealed your demise. Seichime laughed heartily. Are you suicidal? Do you not understand the severity of your situation? My hands are touching. Seichime quietened down. He looked towards the upside-down captive, who was smirking victoriously. Fire make. Ifrit fists. Pain was evident of Seichime's face, but his voice couldn't express the pain. Steam began coming from Seichime's skin. His voice finally found enough to scream. His scream was atrocious, filled with agony. He let go of Sasuke's leg, to clutch his head in pain. Sasuke spinned around, landing on his feet, his hands still stuck within the giant. Seichime looked to his hands, his fingers began disappearing, followed by his hands, it was making its way up his body. The unbearable heat filled every available pain receptor in his body, telling him he needed to escape. The man roared in agony as he shrunk, until his being became nothing more than a small stone statue of himself. Sasuke easily broke his hands free of it, smashing the statue into a small pile of rubble in the process. Sasuke turned to stare hard at Stark, who was in shock. What did you do? Stark asked fearfully. Seichime had never been defeated before. Aragorn prided himself as being the strongest within Eisenwald, but he only had the biggest reputation. Seichime was much stronger than Aragorn, and he was less boastful about it too. The man was made out of water and earth. In short, I evaporated him out of existence. I boiled away the water and hardened the dirt within it. That pile of rubble over there, that is all what's left of Seichime Schlam. Sasuke explained, steam still rising from his fists. He killed Seichime. A guild member yelled in fear. Seichime was one of their best, to be defeated when he had the upper hand. Guild Master Stark, now that the warm-up is over, shall we begin? Come and avenge your fallen guild member. Sasuke smirked, flaring his magical aura. Stark heard the birds in the area flap away in fear. He saw his guild members trembling in fear. He felt himself trembling in fear. What a magical aura! Stark's very mind was trembling. Has Seichime done nothing to weaken him? What the hell is that? Naruto looked up into the sky. Hundreds of birds were all fleeing from one location. They seemed to be trying to get away from something. Naruto stared at the location from the balcony of the second floor overlooking the entrance to the guild, the wind brushing against his face. Whatever it is, I wouldn't want to fight it on a daily basis. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. He had an important mission to prepare for, requested personally of him by Makarov. Make sure Haku gets home safe, Naruto. He's become a big part of the world now. We need to make sure he's safe. I will not fail you, Master Makarov. Naruto's eyes light up in determination. This world will move towards peace. No force will stand in my way in securing that. On the floor, Sasuke threw the battered Stark onto the ground, shackling his hands and lining him up next to the rest of his guild, which were continuing to cower in fear. He beat Master Stark so easily, even after the fight with Seichime. Some of the guild members began crying, apologizing for whatever offense they caused. Dark Guild Eisenwald, you are under arrest, by orders of the Magic Council for the numerous assassinations undertaken by your guild. Sasuke glared at all of them, many now crying, blaming Aragorn for such things. Sasuke-san. The doors burst open, rune knights plagued the hall. The Magic Council were worried chose to undertake such a dangerous job by yourself, so we have been sent us back. The man's voice trailed off, locating Sasuke standing next to the entire guild in shackles. Are the Magic Council underestimating my abilities? Sasuke sounded insulted, frightening a few of the rune knights. They shook their heads in unison. No, not at all. Sasuke gave a quick nod. Take the guild members into captivity and begin demolition of the headquarters. There's something else I need to do. And what is that, sir? A rune knight asked, commanding the others to take the guild members. Eisenwald's best, Aragorn, Kageyama, Vyard, Raoul and Karaka, as well as lesser guild members are still on the loose. I'm going after them, Sasuke explained, determined to rid the world of Eisenwald. Then please take a few rune knights, if only to round up the guild members when you find them. The rune knight requested, Sasuke giving a nod of agreement. Sir. They turned to see a rune knight, looking to them confused. Seichime Schlam appears to be missing. He informed them. They turned to Sasuke, who brushed off the stairs. He's dead, he calmly told them, before he gestured a few rune knights to follow him out. Aragorn can't be too far away. Sasuke thought as he ran out of the guild, dodging what few traps were left. I just hope I make it in time. Break. Bjard dropped to the floor. Lucy let out a sigh of relief. Looking over to where Urza was, she smiled. The red-haired woman had decimated her opponents without any problems, while she struggled on just the one man. Urza looked to her, giving her a small smirk. Lucy couldn't help but grin in return. Then Urza's smirk faded, been replaced with one of worry and horror. Lucy looked behind her, that fat one from before. Karaka had slipped out of the wall behind her, knife in hand. Time to die, little fairy. He chuckled mischievously. He began thrusting the blade home. Urza ran towards Lucy, but she was too far away. Time seemed to slow down for Lucy. Her body stopped moving. She could only watch the knife inch its way closer to her. Karaka's face lightened up with an evil, sly grin. The man's direction suddenly changed. A fist dropped on his head, knocking his body out of the wall and driving his head into the ground, knocking him out in a single punch. Lucy finally found the ability to jump away from the scene. She had just narrowly avoided death, saved by a mystery man. But he wasn't a mystery. Lucy would recognize that spiky black hair and black coat to match a mile away anywhere. Sasuke Uchiha had jumped out of nowhere and saved her life. She felt like squealing, but knew she shouldn't, as it would probably ruin the mood. Are you alright? Sasuke turned to Lucy. He seemed genuinely worried for her. She couldn't contain the blush. I'm fine, she whispered out, unable to look him in the eye. Sasuke approached her, his eyes trailed downwards on her body, his eyebrow rose, shocking Lucy. I didn't know he was like that. She thought, quite alarmed. So you're a celestial spirit mage. Interesting, I've never met one before. Sasuke spoke. Lucy followed his eyeline. Sure enough, he was looking at her celestial keys. So I was just overreacting. Good thing I didn't say anything. Lucy sighed mentally in her head. Imagine if she called one of the top-ranking mages in the perfect boyfriend list a pervert. The death mail she would receive. Sasuke touched her right hand, bringing it up. As long as you're alright, miss. Sasuke smiled charmingly. He looked down towards her hand, his eyes widened. He dropped her hand in an instant, taking a few steps away from her. You're a fairy tale mage. Annoyance was quite clear in his voice. What's with the sudden change of personality? Lucy questioned. He looked behind her, seeing Urza. Irritation seemed to grow within him as well. Urza Scarlet, where is Aragorn? He spoke in a commanding tone. Lucy was shocked that someone would dare to speak to Urza in such a tone, seeing as how Natsu and Grey feared her. I don't have to take your orders, Uchiha. Urza responded in an equally annoyed tone. Lucy was surprised a girl could speak to Sasuke like that. Everywhere she ever traveled there were always a group of girls gossiping about him, giving out heavenly sighs as they did so. The capture of Aragorn is a council matter. I'm under orders. So I order you, as a mage of a guild under the jurisdiction of the council, to tell me where Aragorn is. He is the only member OS Eisenwald still on the loose. Sasuke spoke confidently. His entire presence seemed to darken. It was quite scary if Lucy was honest. Rune Knights entered the station, taking the unconscious members of Eisenwald into captivity. Karaka and Bjard were arrested as well. They worked so quickly. Lucy was impressed. He's battling against Natsu, but the rest of us are stuck in this tornado of wind. Eisenwald member Kageyama is the only one who can deactivate it. Urza finally returned, although she seemed to be wondering something. Probably the same thing Lucy was. If they were stuck in here, how did Sasuke and his Rune Knights get in? Sasuke gave off an annoyed sigh. Fairy tale, useless as ever. He exhaled quietly, but still loud enough for both members of said guild to hear. Kageyama has been taken into captivity, along with a very valuable artifact, Death's Lullaby. Urza's eyes went wide, staring at Sasuke with shock. Death's Lullaby? What's that? Lucy asked aloud. It's a flute that when played, kills everyone that is unfortunate to hear the tune. It was created by the Black Mage, Zareth. And you, fairy tale, how could you be so stupid as to allow a member of a dark guild to possess such a weapon? Sasuke moved away from the two, out of the station, standing just under the tornado. Lucy and Urza followed him out. He performed a pose similar to Grey. Thunder Make, Sea Splitter. He can use Element Maker magic as well. Lucy was shocked. She had only ever seen Grey use that style of magic. A large bolt of lightning sprouted from Sasuke's body, Both thick and tall, it edged forwards. Wrecking the ground it crackled along. It cut straight through the tornado like nothing, disrupting the flow completely and making it dissipate. Rune Knights, take these criminals to justice. I will collect Aragorn, Sasuke ordered, not looking back. Yes sir. The Rune Knights saluted, moving to the fallen members of Eisenwald, leaving Sasuke alone with Lucy and Urza. Time to go clear up Fairy Tail's mess. Sasuke spoke to himself out loud. Lucy looked over to Urza, who looked angry at his statement, but also reluctant to say anything. However, Lucy wasn't like that. What's your problem with Fairy Tail? She asked him very much out of character, raising her voice and speaking down towards him. His head tilted around, looking at them over his shoulder. Eyes completely wide open, his usual onyx eyes had been replaced with a blood-red iris, 3 black tomos surrounding his pupil. Lucy lost all her nerve under his gaze. What I mean is, why do you seem to hate Fairy Tail so much? Sasuke stood silently for a moment, seeming content with staring at them with white rage. Because of Fairy Tail. He began slowly, his voice devoid of everything but one thing, rage, although he seemed to be trying to contain it. I lost everything. Because of Fairy Tail. My big brother is dead. Lucy's eyes widened in astonishment. What does he mean? Fairy Tail seems so nice, there's no way they could be responsible for anyone's death. Sasuke's eyes moved over to Urza, who was just as speechless, yet her eyes displayed knowledge and sadness. So you don't tell the newbies? Sasuke asked her rhetorically, he knew the answer. It doesn't surprise me. The story of Itachi Uchiha shames every quality that Fairy Tail holds in such high regard. He wasted no more time, he vacated the station immediately, leaving the 2 stunned women to meld over what they had just heard. Break. Karyu no Kenkaku. Natsu's body lit up in an ignition, fire covered his entire being, he rammed into Aragorn at his max strength, knocking the man from the sky and down into the bridge. The man mumbled something incoherent, but made no attempt to get back up. Natsu grinned wildly, he had beaten the elements and defeated Aragorn. Natsu. He turned around, that jerk from the Magic Council was there, the one that was always bad-mouthing the guild. What was his name again? Suzube. Natsu spoke in an aloof manner. Lots of people were always saying how cool this guy was, so he tried acting as cool. Sasuke rolled his eyes at the name. Idiot. He mumbled quietly to himself. You've done enough, Natsu, I'll take Aragorn from here. Oh okay. Natsu grinned, scratching the back of his head. Honestly, I thought you were here to arrest me. He chuckled sheepishly, surprised when Sasuke chuckled as well. All in due time, Sasuke darkly chuckled out, flinging Aragorn over his shoulder. Natsu, tell Makarov the lullaby will not be played. Natsu looked confused, his mind doing a mile a second. I don't get it. Sasuke rolled his eyes again. Makarov will, just make sure he gets the message. He began walking away, taking Aragorn into custody. As Sasuke walked through at the edge of the bridge, he noticed a recognizable woman waiting for him. He sighed as he approached her. What is it, Ultir? It's very rare to see you out of the council headquarters, or without Seagrain's leash around your neck. She let out a dry, ill-humored chuckle. You can't hide jealousy, Sasuke-kun. She winked deviously. I'm here to collect Aragorn. Then you have one final objective. I will deliver Aragorn. Sasuke stood in defiance. The council's orders. She told him calmly. They have received the rest of Eisenwald, and Stark has already been put to justice. Sasuke's eyes went wide. Already? No trial has ever gone that fast? Being the leader of a dark guild, especially one of Eisenwald's standing, is instantly a recipient of the capital punishment. The council wants you to go and collect him, as only when he is recruited can the punishment to take its full effect. Ultir smirked wickedly at him, shifting Aragorn from his shoulder. And why must I go? Sasuke asked the woman. You're so proud of your womanly charms, surely you could recruit him. She chuckled sweetly this time, stroking his cheek, an unwanted touch. Because you are the only one he will listen to from the council. She smiled, giving him a quick goodbye. She took off, taking Aragorn away. Sasuke sighed, turning to the direction where he would be. Guess I have no choice. He began to make his way towards his new destination. Break. Sasuke casually walked through the doors of the guild. His presence did not go unnoticed. He glanced around the hall, finding who he needed to speak to. Makarov, you managed to get back to Fairy Tail before me. And with Urza in the group. Sasuke smiled towards the older man, a smile of respect, if only a small one. "Ah, young Sasuke, what can I do for you?" Makarov returned, giving the young man a quick welcoming wave. "Yeah, what's a Magic Council member doing here? Get out, no one wants you here. Leave now. Don't ever come back in Fairy Tail again." The guild members began to get frustrated, looking at Sasuke with scorn. Who brushed off their stares? Sasuke's own face turned into one of disgust. "Trust me, I take no pleasure in being in Fairy Tail. I could never have imagined such a potent smell of shit resonating from one place." Sasuke spoke in a disgusted tone, his nose crinkled as he looked around the room. "Don't not insult our guild in such an unmanly way." The giant elfman charged towards him. Beast arm. Black bull. Elfman's arm enlarged, turning black in color. He thrust the arm downwards, his guild expecting that to be the starting and finishing blow. But Sasuke had caught the arm effortlessly. "I have faced a giant. You are tiny compared to him." Sasuke's eyes opened darkly. He moved forwards at a quick speed. He jabbed Elfman in the gut multiple times quickly, knocking the wind out of him. He latched onto the massive arm, and swung him around, throwing him through the nearest wall. Shocking many of the guild members. He threw Elfman through a wall. They looked at the rubble encasing Elfman, the large gaping hole where he was currently laid in. The guild members turned to stare at Sasuke angrily, beginning to crack their knuckles. Natsu jumped forwards, smoking spewing from his mouth. "You wanna fight? 'Cause I'll beat the crap out of you right here." He screamed aloud, many of the guild members agreeing with the shout. "Do you want to fight?" Sasuke shouted in return. He thrust his hand up towards the roof. His other hand clasped around his wrist. Sasuke's eyes widened to a maniacal degree. "Thunder make. Kier." He was halted in his words. A blur of yellow and orange dropped in front of him, grabbing his extended hand and slamming it into his own neck, effectively making Sasuke strangle himself. "Calm down," Naruto shouted, glared at Sasuke directly in the eyes. "Everyone calm down." He looked towards the rest of the guild. He didn't use dysphoria, but everyone seemed to lower themselves under his stare. He turned to Sasuke, speaking more quietly. "Attempt to use that, and I will not hold back." He warned quietly. "Naruto, just who I was looking for." Sasuke smirked, his grip on his neck loosened, which made Naruto let go of his arm, surprising and inducing gasp from the viewing mages. "The council wants you to perform that role." "Already?" Naruto replied quickly, getting a nod from Sasuke. Naruto looked towards the floor before turning to face Makarov. "Is it okay with you, Master Makarov, what I am about to do? You ask me this every time." Makarov sounded annoyed. "We do what we must in the magic world, this is only a small portion of your role." He spoke a lot more gently this time. Naruto nodded before turning to Sasuke. "Let's go," he told Sasuke quickly, walking away. Sasuke glared around the guild one last time before turning to leave as well. Once they had left the guild, Lucy turned to Makarov. "Master, what would the council want with Naruto, especially if he's going to perform a certain role?" The entire guild seemed to be intrigued, leaning forward, awaiting Makarov's answer. Makarov sighed, he knew he couldn't keep it a secret forever. "Because, the council wants Naruto to perform an execution. Not just any execution, but a mage's execution, otherwise known as Magi Magni Metis." He told them solemnly, sadness written across his face. The guild's eyes went wide. The walls felt like they were closing in. In unison they all turned to the entrance. Naruto was long gone. But they were shocked that someone like that could be living under the very same roof as them. And Naruto can perform a Magi Magni Metis. Lucy stared at the open doors with horror. What an awful guy. And Naruto can perform a Magi Magni Metis. How could someone perform such a thing? I mean, I've always been told what a nice person his is. Lucy stared at the open doors with horror. What an awful guy. Lucy's eyes widened in horror. Her mind traced her back to earlier events of the past few days. Because of Fairy Tail, my big brother is dead. Is that what he meant? Lucy remembered Sasuke's words. Was Naruto, a member of Fairy Tail, the reason why Sasuke lost his brother? Her mind traced her back once again, this time to more recent events. Sasuke had spoken to Naruto calmly, the complete opposite to how he spoke to herself and Urza. He spoke to Naruto as if they were friends. No, that can't be it. He would have reacted a lot worse to Naruto if it was. She glanced around the guild. The veteran older members of the guild had looks of sheer horror set upon their faces, but the younger had confusion mixed into their reaction. Gray, Natsu, Kana. Even Urza had looked at Makarov with confusion. "What's a Magi Magni Metis or whatever you called it?" Natsu finally blurted out for everyone who was unsure. "It's a procedure performed by the council. It's something that they like to secret, very hush-hush, mainly because of the reaction they would receive from mages." Makarov gave an initial explanation. "Natsu, no, in fact all of you. What is worse for a mage than death?" he asked across the guild. The members looked at each other. Makarov's question had left them confused. They looked to one another, hoping that they would have the answer. "Transportation," Natsu finally called out, nodding his head in approval of his own answer. Makarov slammed his fist into the top of Natsu's head like a hammer, knocking him to the floor. "No, you idiot," he yelled, veins bulging on his forehead, before he pinched the bridge of his nose, calming himself down. "The one thing worse for a mage than death is to lose the ability to call yourself as such." Makarov's cryptic answer had left a sour taste in their mouths. They looked towards him with confusion. "So what, they use a spell that bans him from saying the word, mage?" Natsu rubbed his head sorely as he stood up. "That doesn't sound so bad. Natsu," she called out to him. "A Magi Magni Metis is when." She spoke in a shakingly whisper, undeniably attracting everyone's attention. She seemed to be struggling to get out the sentence. "It's when they suck out your magic stores and seal it away permanently." Everyone present's eyes widened, even those who had heard of it before stared in utter horror. How could someone willingly perform something like that? Guild members asked aloud. "That's crazy." Natsu scoffed loudly. "I've been close to being completely draining all the magic out of my body and almost died." "At least that's what Gramps said, so won't he just die either way?" Everyone turned to Makarov for the answer, who only sighed. "Yes, I did say that. But there is a difference between using magic and losing magic." He gestured for everyone to come closer and take a seat. They did so without hesitation, huddling around him like children round a campfire. "Mira, could you get me 3 jugs of water?" he asked, Mira doing so right away. Makarov lifted 2 close buckets, writing magic stores on both of them to avoid confusion. Taking the first one, he jabbed a single small hole in the bottom of the bucket. Mira returned with the 3 jugs of water. Makarov took the first one. "When a mage exhausts his magic stores until they're empty, they will die, that's true." He poured the water into the bucket. It instantly began seeping to the hole in the bottom in a streamline, spilling onto the floor. However, the process is slow, and would take a large amount of magic to be lost in one go. He tipped the bucket over slightly, a good amount spilled over the top. In order to really do some damage. And no matter how low it gets. He took the second jugs and poured it in, filling the bucket back up to the brim. It can easily be refilled. He threw away the first bucket, water pouring all over the floor. He collected the second bucket, and this time jabbed around 15 larger holes in the bottom of the bucket. However, when the magic is sucked out of the body isn't as exhausted, therefore people can live through it. However, he poured the third and final jug into the bucket. The water took no time in spilling back out through the bottom, giving no time for it to be even remotely filled. Magic is cut off forever, your stores are stuck at 0. Magi Magni Metis is one such procedure. Because no matter you try and multiply 0, you will always have 0. So basically, a Magi Magni Metis is turning a mage into a normal human being. He threw the second bucket away. He jumped down into the pool of water, splashing upon landing. His many guild mages stared in horror at the water mess on the floor. How could Naruto do such a thing? They asked themselves. Murmurs began, whispering to each other what should be done with Naruto. How could a fairy tale mage, someone of their own family, do such a thing? "All of you shut up." They turned to Makarov, the veins once again protruding from his head. "Do not judge Naruto for this one thing. He has never used this spell for evil purposes or for personal gain. In fact, he hates himself because he is the only one who can perform it." His words seemed to take some affect, but they still were unconvinced, continued quieter murmurs to themselves. "You guys really ought to be more grateful." They heard from above. Laxus leapt from the second floor, landing with a crash on the floor below. "He has my respect that he hasn't used that magic against any of you." He grinned at the reaction of the mages. He walked through the crowd up to Makarov, handing him the S-class job he was about to depart on. He turned back around, staring at everyone sadistically. Because if I had a magic like that, well, let's just say there wouldn't a place for half of you in Fairy Tail. He walked through the group without any looking back. Here's a thought. He called back one more time over his shoulder. Imagine if he was in a dark guild. Stark schmers. Naruto spoke to the kneeling man, chained in shackles on his knees. They stood on an elevated pedestal, the members of the Magic Council below, and anyone else who wanted to watch what he was about to do. Naruto looked down to the man, who looked close to breaking down. Guild Master of Eisenwald Dark Guild. You will now receive the capital punishment for your crimes, including the assassination of a foreign king, theft of the Southern Bank and primary cause of death for 16 people most recently at the Magnolia train station. This decision is final. Do you have any last words that need spoken? The man cowered, looking up fearfully at Naruto. Please, he spoke in a begging whisper. I don't want to die. You misunderstand. Naruto spoke solemnly, looking sadly at the man in front of him, who had thrown away all dignity for the preservation of his own life. The council has deemed that you are to receive Magi Magni Metis. The man's eyes widened. He began thrashing in his chains, sobbing profusely. No, please, anything but that. Lock me away forever, but please, don't take what it means to be a mage away from me. The man begged loudly. Rune Knights came, tightening his shackles down until he was unable to move. He continued to cry to himself, begging for mercy from Naruto. Naruto had turned away earlier. He could never face their realization of their punishment. As is mandatory, I will explain the process. Naruto spoke dully, facing the chained man once again, but not looking at him. I will be activating my magic, dysphoria, debility and placing my hand on your head. From there, all of your magic stores will be sucked out of your body and into mine, where it will be broken down and destroyed by my own magic stores, similar to enzymes. You will not feel any pain, however you will experience the feeling of strength leaving your body. Naruto explained. The man seemed to have stopped dead in his tracks, unmoving. He stared solemnly at the floor. I will begin now. Naruto spoke. He moved closer to the man, until his face was next to the man's ear. And I'm sorry, he whispered to the man, before standing back up. Naruto placed his hand on the man's forehead, pushing his head up. The man stared at him lifelessly. Dysphoria. Debility. The man's eyes and mouth opened slowly. His face turned something akin to zombie-like. His eyes went out of focus, rolling into the back of his head. A long wheezing gasp escaped his mouth. His head and Naruto's hand enveloped in a dim white light, the one around Stark's head fading as the one around Naruto's hand grew. It continued like this, Stark wheezing moans echoing throughout the room. Until the white light faded completely from Stark, and the bright light around Naruto's hand shone brightly, filling the darkened room with a quick flash of light. Naruto removed his hand from the man, whose head just dropped downwards. Rune Knights appeared. The man is unconscious, sir. One spoke. Naruto walked down the steps, each one like some fall for him. It is done. He's all yours, Magic Chairman. You've done well, Naruto. An elderly man approached him, with simple gray robes and a classic pointy hat. Long black hair hat was beginning to gray cascaded around his head, both the beard and the hair. A large wooden staff tipped with a crystal ball stood firmly in his hand. Rinne. Naruto looked at the leader of the council, Rinne Hoshi sadly. Why not just kill him? Instead of dealing him such a miserable fate. Because there is no peace in death. Rinne responded strongly, fierce eyes met with hesitant ones. There is no order in death. Stark, and the others who are dealt this are examples. The man moved to stand next to Naruto, placing a hand on his shoulder. I commend you for performing the act. Not many have the nerve to see it through. He applauded Naruto. He led Naruto out of the room, back towards his own office. A large room of pure white and gold. The many windows allowing light to shine into the room, opposite to the room he was just in. Rinne moved in front of Naruto. With a sigh he shook his head, patting Naruto on the cheek. How I wish you had never left the council. It was like spending every day with a grandson. He admitted, Naruto finally returning to look him in the eyes. Rinne broke the stare, moving to his large seat. Although, he dragged as he moved to sit down. I should thank you. You managed to keep Fairy Tail somewhat in check with your presence and previous affiliations, although a good few of them are still unafraid to break the rules. He chuckled lightly but received no reaction from the blonde boy in front of him. Naruto, he spoke softly, I know your feelings for doing this for us. But it is imperative that they are carried out. We can't do much, but we can offer reward for performing this. It is after all, a job you successfully completed. Naruto looked up to him, his brow furrowing slightly. I'm not experiencing a rewarding feeling for this. He replied quickly, irritation subtle in his voice. Uranai sighed. He pulled a bag that jingled with every movement. Please do not make this hard every time. He begged slightly. Just take the payment. He threw the bag towards Naruto, who made no attempt to catch it. Instead his hand slapped the bag away once it was close enough, the bag rocketing into the wall, spilling jewels across the floor. Screw your payment. Naruto glared hard at the old man. This is why I left the council. Your morals are dirtier than fairy tales. They may not go about it in the best and most elegant of ways. But Fairy Tail is by far more honorable than the Magic Council. He turned abruptly, vacating the room, ignoring the elderly man's calling out to him. Naruto entered the guild hall, the chattering he heard from outside vanished. The stares of everyone met him. As he walked in, everyone else seemed to stop, watching his movements. Naruto met the stares of a few of them, trying to smile at them sincerely. They jumped slightly when their eyes met, looking fearfully at him, cowering at the smile he presented them. He glanced over to Kana, who he had grown up with. She met his stare for a second before she turned away, unable to glance at him any longer. He met the stare of Gray, who was the same age as him. They had never really spoken, but even he turned away. His eyes met with Urza's. Even she jumped slightly as their eyes met. She too was unable to look him in the eyes longer than a few moments. Urza, who didn't fear anything, was afraid of him. Naruto looked towards the ground with shame. Then towards Makarov, who beamed widely, as if nothing had happened. Naruto could only give the weakest of smiles in return. Haku, Byaku, are you ready to go? He asked quietly. Haku replied with a nod. Good to see someone recognizing his cats. Goodbye Happy. She waved to the blue cat, before catching up to Haku and Naruto, who stood waiting for her. Naruto gave a nod goodbye to Makarov, who gave a quick wave in return. Naruto turned with Haku and Byaku, exiting the guild once again. The trio strolled down the road in silence, Naruto's head never lifting from facing the floor. Are you alright, Naruto-san? Haku asked worriedly, staring at the boy with worry. He received no answer for a minute or so, before finally a sigh escaped from Naruto. No matter where I go, pain and suffering follow me like dogs on a leash. Naruto sighed out sadly. He shifted from looking to the ground to staring upwards at the sky. It was clear, pure and spacious. Everything was free up there, the clouds, the birds, free from their problems. I love Fairy Tail. Naruto admitted more to himself than to Haku and Byaku. He smiled upwards at the sky. I love Fairy Tail so much, but... His smile faded, slowly bringing his head back down, facing the ground he was soon to step on. I've been considering leaving the guild. Haku's and Byaku's eyes widened at the statement. But if you love it so much, why would you leave it? Byaku shouted her question at the blonde. I put Master Makarov in enough trouble with the other guilds because of who I am, because of what I can do. Naruto stared at his hand intently. I used to curse this hand every day. This hand would ruin lives. He clenched his fist before dropping his arm to his side. Even Master's own guild is beginning to doubt him. It's all because of me. Haku stared at him for a moment. Makarov-san is not ashamed of your abilities. He informed him. The boy's head shot up, staring in shock at Haku. Nor is he ashamed about you as a whole. So neither should you be. He looked up into the sky, similar to how his blonde companion had done so moments ago. The abilities we posses were given to us for a reason. He turned his head to face Naruto, a smile forming on his lips. Your purpose will become clear soon. Naruto stared at him with wide eyes, before softening to a smile. Haku was right. There must be a reason why he had these abilities beyond delivering pain. He would find that reason. Spoken like a true guild master. He chuckled lightly, Haku himself chuckling as well. There he is. He pointed to the black-haired boy, currently walking along the road with another blonde boy and the little white bipedal cat. He stood with his group of mercenaries, the remnants of the mercenary guild, Devil's Pitchfork. Once powerful and feared across the land, it was destroyed one day by Zabuza Momochi, the silent demon, taking it down for what appeared to be no other reason than for the hell of it. It left them without a home, without a family, and they wanted their vengeance. They regrouped only their strongest and tracked down Zabuza. They found that he had taken on an apprentice. What perfect revenge! Zabuza destroyed their past, they would destroy Zabuza's future. Is everyone prepared? He asked his group, who nodded affirmatively. His face turned to a grin. Excellent. Now we shall continue with our plan. Devil's Pitchfork will be avenged. They watched the trip continue down the road. How blissfully unaware they were of their fate. He's what we do. When they reach the opening in the forest, we will ambush them from all directions. Take out the blonde and the cat. I will have the pleasure of killing Zabuza's apprentice. The leader instructed, his voice spitting the name Zabuza out. He growled, turning to the trio once again. Zabuza. He spat out once again. A pathetic coward. You will mourn the loss of your apprentice this day. Move out. The group darted through the trees in unison, moving towards the checkpoint, readying themselves for the ambush. Naruto's eyes widened upon hearing the mercenaries' plan. Having a heightened sense of hearing had its advantages. Haku. Naruto began to warn the Demon Mist Guild master. I know. Haku replied calmly, staring down the road ahead. I heard them too. How could he had heard them too? Naruto asked in his own mind. I only heard because of Dragon Slayer's heightened senses. He glanced over to Haku, who began staring angrily down the road. What possible abilities does Haku actually possess? Naruto looked down, only just realizing that his breath was visible, and that the air had got significantly colder in the last few seconds. He looked up to the once shining sky. Gray clouds loomed overhead. Blocking the sun, white particles fell from the sky, one gracefully landing on Naruto's nose. Snow? He stared at the particle as it melted, more falling all around him. Impossible, it's not supposed to snow for a good 6 months. The snow picked up, falling faster and heavier. Until it blinded Naruto's vision. Squinting, he looked over to Haku, who was completely unaffected by it all, just continuing to stare furiously at the road ahead. The snow picked up further, a blizzard now surrounded Naruto, shielding his face from the incoming storm. What's going on? Naruto spoke loudly, unsure if anyone could actually hear him. The dragon slumbering in the blizzards. Naruto looked down to Byaku, who was as unaffected by the surroundings as Haku. Her eyes darted up, staring at Naruto with a smirk on her face. Has awakened. Her head shot up quickly, indicating to Naruto to face Haku. Naruto stared through the blizzard. Haku's eyes shot towards Naruto like a bullet, his head unmoving. A small smile was present on his face, that quickly grew into a wide grin, both sets of teeth totally visible. Haku's vision switched to staring at the road once again, the wide grin not leaving his face. The canines. Naruto stared at those two selective teeth, how elongated they were. He looked back up to Haku's eyes. The pupils had become slightly slitted instead of the perfect round. Haku is a dragon slayer too.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.